I am Lear Els now, though I wasn't always. 3 days ago, I actually died in my old world, drowning while trying to save a stranger, and woke up in this totally broken body, starving body inside the 9th district of Lauren City. It is the worst slum in the Griffin Kingdom. The air here literally stinks of waste, and the residents look half dead. My only daily food is some dry black bread, so incredibly hard even dogs would completely avoid it. This place is stuck somewhere in medieval times, but there is actual magic, gods, fearsome dragons, demons, and savage creatures from underground, who constantly raid the surface and slaughter entire towns. Normal folks like us are completely powerless here, poor and invisible. The guy whose body I ended up taking was the absolute last surviving member of the Els family. His father, Baron Els, passed away 10 years ago from an old injury, and their whole family fell apart after that. Under kingdom law, if no heir claims their noble title within 7 years, it gets revoked, but the original Lear was too young, only 15 when that deadline passed, and because of that, his family lost absolutely everything. He ended up in these slums, determined to reclaim his title. There is only one path left: become a frontier lord. That means traveling out into the wilderness, far beyond the kingdom's borders, and establishing a brand new settlement out there. Sounds easy, right? But into 1,000 years. Our kingdom has only pushed 1,000 miles into it. The bones of fallen frontier lords could fill a mountain. Orcs, vicious vampires, undead, dark elves, and demons. This lawless wilderness is crawling with them. Yet, the original Lear applied anyway. He figured slowly starving to death in the slums wasn't any better than taking a wild gamble out there. But his body was just too fragile, passing away from a simple fall before he could even start. That's when I arrived. Meanwhile, my neighbor Jim, a very kind old man, this retired knight now scraping by at the docks, desperately tried to stop me, warning me about the terrors waiting in the wild, praying that the Duke would reject my application outright. But today, an Imperial soldier showed up at my door with a sealed document. Duke Lauren approved it. I must report tomorrow morning to collect my gear and claim my new territory. The paper also officially confirms my inheritance. I am finally Baron Lyril once again. Legally, there is no backing out. Any new frontier lord who tries to delay or make excuses, hanged as a deserter. In a crazy world packed with supernatural powers, escaping is not even an option. So I just stood there, staring at the paper, feeling the absolute weight of my situation. Is staying alive really this brutally hard? But right then, a faint blue light sparked in my mind, swirling together into a glowing screen covered in written text. Detection complete. You are now a lord. The intelligence system is now fully active. I leapt straight to my feet, my chest pounding. Whatever this thing was, it might be the only thing capable of keeping me alive. Out there, after Jim finally left, I immediately focused all my attention on the intelligence system. In my head, the screen refreshes once every 5 days, delivering 5 crucial pieces of secret information, each graded by how incredibly valuable it is, ranking from 1 star up to 6. And since it was my first time, a guaranteed lucky bonus. 1 intel piece was guaranteed to be 5 stars or higher. I quickly ordered the system to refresh, and 5 entries began appearing on screen. Blue panel, but the first 2 were only rated 1 star. The first was about a corrupt supply officer named Dern, planning to take a massive bribe to hand over special military supplies straight to some noble family called Roe. Completely useless to me, since my family's rank is way too low to qualify for that gear anyway. The second warned that over 100 ogres would soon attack a town called Windmill Town, super dangerous territory north of town, but I was completely powerless against it. Now, the next 2 were 2-star info, way better. The third tip pointed directly to 9th District's black market. Stall 13 was selling tiny tree saplings. They're just labeled as common red leaf trees, but they're actually lava fruit trees under disguise. These magical fruits fully restore your mana, and they sell for 10 gold coins each. Meanwhile, a normal guy only makes 5 gold in a year. In a whole year. Yet someone was dumping these priceless plants, selling them at dirt cheap wood prices. If I buy them, trust me, the payout will be absolutely massive. The fourth intel was about Felina Lauren. She is the eldest daughter of this city's ruling family, and she is a level 16 Grand Mage. Only 24, but strong enough to flatten the city. Lately, she's been hunting for a rare herb called blue crystal grass, and thankfully, my system showed me the exact coordinates. 200 kilometers northwest, hidden in a valley of Lilla. This grass itself might not be worth much on its own, but since a powerhouse wants it so badly, the price skyrockets. This is my golden ticket to fund my entire journey. Then, the fifth notification finally popped up, glowing with a brilliant 6-star gold light, the highest possible rating. Are you ready? My heart literally stopped reading it. Back at that 9th District black market, grave robbers just smuggled a cloudy crystal out of an ancient tomb on the morning of July 8th, right at sunrise. They're selling it at stall 23 near the entrance. That specific crystal actually contains a fragment of the swamp, God's shattered divine power. All I need to do is drip a single drop of blood on it, and I can fully control that God's fragment, actual divine power, the raw power of a being that literally rules this world. And it's basically sitting at a cheap market stall waiting for me. Right here, in my own district. My hands were shaking. This system. It was truly terrifying, and it took a while to calm down. After seeing that 6-star info, a God's power fragment, just sitting there, seriously, just waiting on some cheap market stall. I had to have it, but one major problem stood out. No money, and 0 fighting skills. I had not even formed my magic seed yet. I was basically just an ordinary guy. In a cruel world full of powerful beings, robbing those tomb raiders was definitely out. So, I needed a plan. I had to leverage the cheaper pieces of intel for quick cash. Then I could go after that divine fragment. That third piece of info was by far the easiest to use. The lava fruit tree. Saplings were being sold dirt cheap as red leaf trees at stall 13 in the 9th District market. I chose to start there. Walking over to the corner of my room, I pried loose a brick and grabbed 3 silver coins. That was literally everything. The previous owner of this body had left me 100 coppers make, single silver coin, and just 1 copper gets you a loaf of awful black bread. These 3 coins were enough for me to survive, for probably around 4 months. Now, I was gambling everything on this system's intel. I walked 20 minutes through the winding back alleys, heading to the market. The area was packed with poor folks in patched-up clothes, bargaining fiercely over every single copper. I quickly slipped past all of the smaller vendors, and finally reached the main section, counting down the stalls until I hit number 13. It was a tiny fruit shop run by a thin man with a limp. I noticed a triangle tattoo on his arm, the infamous mark of the Pure Blood Brotherhood, a brutal local gang, meaning this shop was likely a front. I knew I had to be extremely careful here, and not reveal what I truly wanted. I spotted those legendary lava fruit saplings right away, completely covered in foul-smelling mud. Only a few tiny red leaves were poking out. You honestly could not tell them apart from ordinary, cheap red leaf plants by looking. So I asked to buy various cheap common saplings, green fruit, long leaf, and red ones. This successfully hid my real target among the rest. There were only 12 lava fruit saplings total. I grabbed them all along with some other cheap ones, paying just a silver coins for 40 plants total. After some intense haggling, the shopkeeper threw in 5 extra just to get rid of me. He spat right on the ground as I walked away, laughing at me, a clueless slum kid. Meanwhile, honestly, he had no clue he just sold me a massive fortune. I carefully carried my bundle of muddy plants down dark back alleys, slipping out of the 9th District without any trouble. Nobody gave me a second glance. The dirty bundle looked completely worthless anyway. Once outside the slums, the city was a different world. Massive pointed towers with gorgeous stained glass windows. Every wall had beautiful plaster carvings, praising legendary heroes. Noble ladies peeked from windows. It was incredible. And comparing this to the filth I just left behind, felt pretty cruel, but I did not stop to look. No time to waste. So I hired a carriage and rushed toward the city center. By sunset, I finally stood in front of the Rose Estate, the majestic home of the Lauren family. A beautiful fountain misted the air near the gate, creating a colorful rainbow against walls over 10 meters high. They were lined with angel statues and roses. Can you even imagine? It was easily the most gorgeous place ever. The guards watched me with razor-sharp eyes as I walked forward. They blocked me immediately, shouting, "This is the Rose Estate." I simply raised the tiny sapling in my hand, claiming to have the magical plant Princess Felina wanted, the one with the reward of blue crystal grass, but the guards still kept me blocked at the gate. A massive knight wearing pitch-black armor and a blood-red cloak stepped forward, sizing me up with pretty heavy suspicion, holding nothing but muddy saplings, wearing pretty patched-up clothes. Clearly, I did not belong. I told him flat out I did not have the blue crystal grass on me, but I knew its location, though he did not look convinced. I kept my voice steady, explaining that absolutely nobody would risk their own life just to tell lies to the princess. All he had to do was pass my message along to her. If I lied, all the blame fell on me, not on him, and he was actually coming around. Suddenly, the sound of horses cut us off. 7 white unicorns pulled a carriage, blooming roses wrapped pretty tightly all around it, rolling right past. Every plant along the street suddenly seemed to wake up, standing taller, turning much greener. Roses on the walls swayed with absolutely no wind. The air filled with a pretty sweet fragrance. It felt like watching an actual goddess arrive. The driver was a girl with golden hair in a dark blue gown, stunning enough to be an actual noblewoman herself. And yet, she was only the helper. Now, look who steps out next. Felina Lauren. She had skin like pure jade, flawless features, and deep blue eyes that locked onto anyone looking. Her brown hair drifted as if totally weightless, draped in a black robe with soft, faint rose patterns, noble and elegant in every single way. Every guard placed a hand on his chest and bowed. The tall knight was actually trembling with respect. Now, let me break down how power works here. Knights and mages. Knights strengthen their physical bodies. Mages command pure magic. Their ranks go from apprentice up to junior, intermediate, senior, then advanced, grand, crown, and finally transcendent. Every rank has 3 distinct levels. Most mages never get past intermediate levels. But Felina was already at level 16 Grand Mage at 24, an absolute magic prodigy. Throughout the long history of the Griffin Empire, a Grand Mage can unleash massive war spells, powerful enough to literally wipe out half a city. And across this entire empire, only a tiny handful of people have ever reached higher. But watch how I greet her with the proper noble's bow. Hand on shoulder, nodding politely. She noticed, looking quite curious. Then, she told me she had heard our conversation straight through the air itself. Some crazy magic. I had to remind myself again. Honestly, this world was just mind-blowing. I told her I knew exactly where the blue crystal grass grew, and that I had come to claim the reward. She was incredibly direct, explaining that this grass was a key ingredient for a potion she desperately needed. Before asking me what I wanted in return, I just couldn't help pointing out that she was a pretty terrible negotiator. She smiled faintly, taking in my patched clothes and calm eyes, and suggested that I tell her the location first, promising a reward that would definitely satisfy me. I gave it to her without hesitating. 200 kilometers northwest of Lawrence City, in a valley filled with Lilith, because information is only ever worth something when you hand it over to the right person at the right time. Holding onto it would have got me absolutely nothing. She looked genuinely surprised by how fast I answered. Then, she asked if I was not scared she'd break her promise. After all, she was the royal princess, and nobody would ever believe a poor man's complaint against her. I just stared at her, thinking about the 6-star, golden intelligence glowing right inside my mind, and answered calmly, I am not afraid. The real cost of breaking your word might be far more than you can actually afford. Felina's eyes instantly lit up with curiosity, so I told her that even the kids of the 9th district praised her name, so surely she would not cheat me over a single plant. It was flattery, and we both knew it, but she seemed far more interested in the sheer confidence behind my words than the actual words. She turned to her silver-helmeted knight Rico, ordering him to retrieve the blue crystal grass. Immediately, he knelt on one knee, eyes burning with absolute loyalty, accepting her command like it was the highest honor of his life. I mean, who wouldn't laugh in this world? Just one word from a noble like her could make a grown man tremble with pride. Then she chanted a spell in some bizarre tongue and threw her head back toward the sky. An eagle's cry echoed from above us. Suddenly, a massive shadow dropped from the clouds. A griffin, lion's body, falcon's head, and eagle wings, stretching over 10 meters wide. Its glowing amber eyes were sharp as arrows, just standing on the ground. Its massive shoulders towered over 3 meters high. The heavy pressure radiating off it made breathing difficult. But fear, no way. I was actually excited. This was the world's real magic. Raw, legendary creatures that could never exist back home. Staring up at the beast, I realized that riding one through the open sky would be the most thrilling ride ever. Felina immediately caught my reaction. She looked pretty surprised that a regular guy, with no magic core, felt zero fear. Instead, I was looking at her terrifying war beast, the way a kid stares at a shiny toy. Rikel mounted the griffin and took off. Those massive wings kicked up a violent whirlwind, shooting straight up until they vanished into the endless clouds. Felina asked my name, so I introduced myself properly. Lyral, using a polite, noble greeting. Then, she totally surprised me. She offered to buy the lava fruit saplings I was carrying, explaining that these specific trees take 20 years of careful nurturing before they bear fruit. 20 whole years. By then, they are pretty useless to me. Only ancient nobles, with centuries of crazy wealth, could actually afford to wait that long. So I handed over all 12 saplings without hesitating. She took the muddy little plants in her pale hands, and the exact moment she touched them, they suddenly stood straight and came alive. Honestly, it is like a goddess of growth blessed them. She then told me to come back tomorrow morning, after choosing my frontier territory, and she would hand over my full reward. She promised it would satisfy me. I agreed, then casually added as best as I could that I was actually a bit short on cash, and asked if she could lend me 100 gold. The guards were totally shocked, a ragged slum dweller asking the princess for cash. They glared like I had insulted their goddess. Felina herself did not know whether to laugh or sigh, but she just waved to her maid, a pretty blonde girl named Molly, and ordered her to hand over the gold coins. I thanked her lavishly, maybe a bit too lavishly, actually, calling her completely magnanimous and admirable. She actually laughed. Molly brought over a small cloth bag. I opened it, quickly counting the coins, confirmed the amount was correct, then tucked it away. Felina watched me do all of this, completely without a hint of embarrassment, and smiled to herself. I quickly said my goodbyes and left. I already did the math before showing up. Those 12 saplings were worth maybe 30 gold coins on the open market. The blue crystal grass info was worth around 50, so 100 gold was already more than expected. Those extra supplies Felina promised later were just a sweet bonus. I knew when to stop. A smart gambler never chases every last coin. He knows exactly when to walk away. Check this out, in literally just half a day, I turned 2 pieces of 2-star intel into one very full purse. Honestly, those 1-star pieces of info were totally useless to me. I had 0 ways to act. But that 5th lead, the 6-star golden intelligence, the swamp god's own divine fragment, that was different. July 8th at sunrise. It was coming up fast, and I had to be ready. On the morning of July 8th, I threw on a black cloak to cover my face, and slipped into the 9th District's black market. This black market was legendary, famous all across the northern province. It only opened once every 3 days, tucked away inside old ruins deep in the worst slums. Honestly, the irony here is just wild. Mind-blowing wealth, trading hands in the absolute worst spot in the city. The crowd was packed, and over half of them had their faces covered. Just like mine, stalls sold literally everything imaginable. Weird minerals, beast fangs, swords, glowing potions, chained half-elf servants, and even 20 complete sets of royal army armor, with the Griffin Empire's seal stamped right on them, just sitting out in the open. Total lawlessness. I quietly counted stalls as I walked. The system had told me that crystal would land at the 23rd stall, right near the entrance at sunrise. But reaching that spot, I only found a ragged, one-armed guy selling some colorful rocks. No crystal ball anywhere. I scanned his 30 or 40 rocks carefully, nothing. Right then, the sun broke through the heavy morning mist, lighting up the dirty city streets. And right then, 3 guys in ragged clothes, carrying massive leather packs, stepped right up next to me, smelling heavily of dirt. The guy in the middle was pretty small and quiet, with a colorful toy propeller attached to his backpack. Pretty weird, right? Especially in a sketchy place like this. Without saying a word, they threw a dirty sheet on the ground, right next to the urinal, and began unpacking. The quiet kid pulled out a yellowish crystal ball. My heart literally stopped. They had just set up right in front of the old man's market stall, making their spot the 23rd. Turns out the system was exactly right. I calmed my racing heart and asked to examine their items. They agreed, just warning me to handle everything with care. Since everything looked pretty old, I took my time. I carefully examined every piece, one by one, for about 10 whole minutes, before finally picking up the crystal ball. It was fist-sized and freezing cold, covered in deep scratches from years spent underground. It looked completely ordinary. Nobody would ever guess that deep inside, it hid a literal fragment of a god's power, something that, wait for it, could drive everyone mad. I casually set it back down and just kept browsing, acting like I had no special interest in it. Then I started asking about prices. An ivory bowl for 10 gold, an ivory cup for 12. I asked about several items first, before finally pointing at the crystal ball. 10 gold coins, and I pretended to hesitate. I picked 7 items, put 4 back, and kept only 3, including that crystal, asking them for a bulk discount. They said they never bargain here, but they offered all 3 for 28 gold. I countered with just 20 silver coins, practically pocket change, and his face instantly changed. He said it was robbery, but after a long back and forth, we finally settled on 20 gold coins for all 3 pieces. Both sides seemed pretty satisfied. The old seller sitting next to us looked deeply regretful, wishing he tried to sell his goods to me first. Before leaving, I noticed a colorful little toy propeller hanging on the quiet man's backpack. I asked if he would part with it. He paused for a moment, then detached it with a small smile. My daughter gave it to me just this morning, but if you like it, just take it. His daughter, even brutal tomb raiders in this harsh world, still have people they love and come home to. I thanked him and walked out of the shady black market, holding that colorful bamboo dragonfly in one hand, and a bag of ancient relics safely in the other. My face remained perfectly calm, but on the inside, I was completely losing my mind. The swamp god's divine relic actually belonged to me now. Literally the most valuable item in this entire world. Acquired for just 20 gold coins at a filthy slum street stall. Within only 2 days, I had pulled the ultimate card. Right as I walked away from that shady black market, my cheat information system booted up all by itself. Finishing that 6-star quest had just unlocked 3 extra bits of crucial news. Apparently, wrapping up any quest rated 4 stars or above drops bonus intel. The first leak showed me how to activate the relic. I simply had to drip some blood onto the crystal, and the swamp god's spark would fuse with my soul. There was a catch. I would fall into a heavy coma for 10 hours while it happened, meaning I had to find a totally secure hiding spot. Now get this. Tomorrow covers the territory selection. Out of the available areas, one is explicitly named the Muddy Swamp, and tucked deep inside lay a real fragment of Swamp Authority. See, a core is really just an empty container. Authority is the actual raw force that fills it up. Without both, this legendary power is useless. I absolutely had to grab that plot before those other frontier lords can even touch it. The third secret pointed directly to the slave market. Over in District 2, a trading guild called Dragonfang plans to put 2 squads of swamp lizard folk on sale. Tomorrow afternoon, 200 warriors, all level 6 junior knights. The dealers could not handle them anymore, and wanted a quick payout way below market price. Usually, just one level 6 knight costs 100 gold, but with my divine core, I can force these lizard warriors to obey my commands, shaping them into the first army for my brand new land. Problem is, I only had some spare gold coins left, so buying the entire group seemed pretty out of reach. But hey, if I do run out of cash, Princess Felina and I are already on quite excellent terms. Securing a small loan from her should be quite easy. So I hopped in a carriage to the Rose House, easily the best inn in Lawrence City, run by Felina herself. Just one night there cost a whole gold coin, when normal workers only make 6 gold a year. But I wasn't doing this for luxury. This place was barely a kilometer from the Grand Duke's mansion, right in the most heavily guarded district around. Because honestly, what I was about to pull off required the safest hiding spot in existence. I checked right in, took a dwarf-built elevator up to the 10th floor, flipped the Do Not Disturb sign on the door, locked it tight, and shut the curtains. Then, I lined up 3 items on the table, shoving the other 2 aside. Only that scratched-up crystal ball was important now. Checking the instructions one last time, I bit my finger. A drop of blood hit the crystal, and boom, the whole thing just explodes with light, turning the dark room as bright as day. This wild energy began swirling all around, completely contained, not spreading past the ball. Then, the blood guided that magic inside my body. What flooded my body felt pure, sacred, like I was staring into an endless starry sky. It was so overwhelming, even my soul felt clean. The power just kept coming, until it finally hit some kind of limit. As it settled, the crystal shone like a small sun. For 5 whole hours, it released waves of holy, untouchable power, before slowly going dark. It slipped right out of my hands, hitting the bed. The room fell silent, no magical trace left. By then, I was totally out. Deep within me, my entire soul was transforming into something else. I really have no idea how long I slept, but the moment my eyes finally blinked open, everything inside my head felt completely rearranged. I could literally feel this deep blue energy vortex, massive and untamed like the wild ocean. Suddenly, a single word flashed inside. I had actually become a real mage, and not some basic beginner either. Somehow, that godly fragment pushed me all the way to level 3 apprentice mage in just one night. A brand new system window popped up, displaying my stats. My intelligence system had actually unlocked a hidden bonus function. Now, I could see everything clearly. My level, my mana, even my skills, all of it. Look at this, I got 2 abilities, Touch of the Wetlands, which heals everything within a tight area, working exceptionally well on swamp-dwelling beasts, and Divine Might. It lets me unleash the heavy pressure of the swamp god to paralyze any target. If it succeeds, their soul gets marked, loyal to me, but if I fail, they'll immediately attack. My potential capped out at just 2 stars, meaning I could only reach level 9 on my own. Yet the most crucial part was the Divine Core, Swamp, 10%, focusing my mind. I detected a pulsing spark inside my magic seed, a cracked, glowing blue orb emitting intense pressure, like a slumbering god slowly being reborn. If I can track down the other pieces, imagine that, gathering them all to become a literal god. Getting to my feet, I drew the curtains, watching the evening sun paint the sky in gold and red. Lauren City lay sprawled out right before me, absolutely massive, as I clenched my fist in hope. For the first time since landing in this place, I believed I stood a genuine chance. The next morning, July 9th, I dressed in the sole heirloom I refused to pawn, a dark noble robe featuring a golden embroidered iris, the signature crest of the L family. Before inheriting it, I was strictly forbidden from wearing this, flaunting a noble crest without any permission, which was a massive crime in this empire. But today, I was Baron Lear Els once more, and this simple robe was the final piece of my family history. Soon, I arrived at the Duke's estate, where the land selection ceremony was about to begin. Over 100 frontier lords were already packed inside the great hall, gathered in tight groups, whispering amongst themselves. Every single one proudly wore their family crest, even those whose families had obviously hit rock bottom. You see, pride ran deep here. I quickly found an empty seat. 2 guys in white robes sat nearby, gossiping eagerly about the legendary Grand Duke and his monstrous power. Apparently, he killed a dragon with his bare hands 100 years ago, before shifting topics to Felina, praying she would actually show up. They dubbed her the glorious flower of the north, the Rose of Lorraine. The younger noble muttered, saying that merely getting her attention was worth dying for. I just listened. But between us, her famous beauty did not interest me. I only cared about what prize she would hand me. A goddess shouldn't be stingy. Then, the room froze. Felina glided right through the front doors, decked out in a silver stitch gown and long, midnight black lace gloves. Her silver hair drifted behind her like weightless silk. Absolutely everyone stared in pure awe. The tough frontier lords immediately bowed in unison, and the 2 guys next to me hit the deck, blushing like complete fanboys, ready to literally kiss her footsteps. But she ignored them. She bypassed the entire crowd and stood right before me. Our gazes locked, and I tapped my right shoulder, offering a proper, traditional noble salute. Just a polite nod, nothing flashy. She offered a soft smile and matched my nod, a greeting reserved only for equals, while the others barely got a glance. The standard nod saved for mere subordinates. Greetings, Lord Learls. A pleasant day, Princess Felina. The 2 nobles kneeling beside me looked up with wide eyes. Who was I? Why had their goddess greeted me personally? Their grand, knightly bows had not earned them a single glance, yet I received a warm, companion greeting, all while sitting comfortably, making them look like complete clowns. Realizing the joke was now on them, Felina's greeting instantly drew every single in the hall to me. But neither of us cared. She was totally used to being the center of attention, and after merging with that divine fragment, my mindset completely shifted. Even someone as incredibly extraordinary as her could not shake my focus anymore. She stepped onto the grand platform to give a speech. Her soft voice slowly grew powerful, talking about the empire's 2,000-year history and the ancestors who bled for its glory. She spoke of how everyone standing here had already proven their deep courage. By choosing this dangerous path, she called us heroes. The crowd absolutely ate it up, faces flushed, blood boiling. Everyone stood ready to charge into the wilderness. Right then and there, I understood that burning feeling completely. You had to live as a broke, ruined noble, forgotten, clinging tightly to the last scraps of pride, to really understand those powerful words. But look closely, she got straight to business. A glowing magic map appeared behind her, shining blue, shimmering with flowing rivers and swaying trees. It showed the wild lands surrounding Loren City. Crafted from over 1,000 years of exploration, green zones marked territories already claimed, or those still in their 5-year development period. Everything else remained wide open. There were maybe 200 or 300 green zones, scattered across the map, half showing town icons. Compared to that endless, vast wilderness, after 1,000 years, they looked tiny. Only about 100 territories had been successfully established. Most were small towns within 300 to 500 kilometers of the city. Honestly, that alone tells you everything about how many frontier lords actually survive. Their excitement cooled when they saw those grim numbers, but others burned even hotter, staring at those town icons with hungry eyes. A few settlements had actually grown to over 200,000 people. Those founding families held massive power. Even Loren City itself, the greatest city up north, was built over 1,000 years ago by the very first frontier lord, the legendary Duke of Loren himself. If he could pull it off, why not them? Felina ordered everyone to start choosing. I spoke up first. Your Highness, I have already made my final decision. Every single head turned toward me. Felina's eyes flashed with curiosity. Lord Lear? For my choice, I pointed at the map. The muddy swamp. The hall instantly erupted. Can you really blame them? The muddy swamp was over 1,000 kilometers from Loren City. That meant over half a month of travel. Absolutely nobody in history had ever successfully built a territory that deep into the wild. Felina warned me herself, telling me the dangers out there were completely beyond imagination. I replied quietly, if nobody has done it yet, then I will be the first. The room went completely still. Then, I saw a sudden shift in their faces, genuine respect, whatever they thought of my chances. My words had definitely struck a nerve. That is the whole point of being a frontier lord, going exactly where nobody else would ever dare. Felina stared at me for a long, silent moment. Lord Lear, your courage is truly admirable. And I could tell she was genuinely curious. She just couldn't understand where my confidence came from. How could a poor, fallen noble act so fearless? But get this, I knew a massive secret she didn't. That swamp held a divine fragment, the final piece. It would make my divinity core completely whole. So that swamp wasn't a death trap. It was actually exactly where I needed to be. I left right after claiming my territory. The lizard folk auction started this afternoon, and tomorrow, the intel system would refresh with new secrets. I had plenty to do, but as I left the hall, Felina's blonde maid Jasmine blocked my path and led me to a private room. Felina wanted a private word. I waited only a few minutes before she entered, looking incredibly graceful with her long hair flowing. She reminded me right away. I still owed her 100 gold. I smiled, saying we were friends. And once I built up my new territory, I'd pay her back double. She chuckled at that word, calling it an honor, but quickly got straight to business. She revealed the blue crystal grass was safely in her hands. It was a pretty crucial ingredient, needed for her next advancement, from level 16 to level 17. No wonder she wanted to find it so badly. I said we were officially even. She got her crucial rank-up material, and I got 100 gold coins when I was broke. She smiled, saying I couldn't calculate things so simply. She had already quietly investigated my situation and prepared supplies for me. Jasmine handed over a list, and I read it carefully. Food, farming tools, ironware, 30 entire wagons of goods. But wait, check out the rewards at the bottom. 1,000 gold coins, cash, 200 sets of standard Loren City Guard armor, and 100 slave craftsmen. That armor alone was worth an absolute fortune. 20 gold coins per set, for 200 sets. That was 4,000 gold coins total. A regular worker would need 800 years to earn that. I just looked at her and promised I would always remember her kindness. She teased me for being way too formal with a friend. I paused, then smiled. Then let us start over and introduce ourselves again. Greetings, I am Lear Els. Felina Loren's maid looked totally shocked. Calling a princess by her first name was absolutely unheard of. But Felina sensed the deep sincerity behind it. Something in her eyes completely softened, and she returned my casual greeting the exact same way. Greetings, Lear Els. I am Felina Loren. Then she waved her hand, and a tiny wooden cage materialized right out of thin air. Inside sat this chubby, gray insect munching happily on green leaves. It really looked like nothing special. Just a fat bug she called a swamp mud insect, found in ancient ruins. She mentioned that, according to ancient legend, Once fully grown, it hunts dragons. But the thing had been sleeping in those ruins for far too long, and even after feeding it tons of high-grade magical plants, she could not wake its power. Maybe returning it to a swamp would help. She handed it over to me as a token of our new friendship. I let the tiny creature crawl onto my finger and just stared at it. This little thing can actually hunt dragons. Sounds like a wild fairy tale, right? But I knew a secret. My swamp divinity core actually controlled all swamp life. If anything could wake this sleeping insect up, it was definitely the power resting deep inside my soul. I thanked her, then reached deep inside my robe, and pulled out something of my own. A simple, colorful bamboo dragonfly that I got from a black market tomb raider, crooked and childish. Just a toy his little daughter had made for him. Her maid just stared at it in pure disbelief. After everything the princess had just gifted me, this was my return gift, but Felina took it. She smiled warmly while turning it over in her hands. I accept your gift, she whispered. It is honestly the first time anyone has given me such a meaningful gift. She tucked it away carefully. Then she pressed 3 fingers to her forehead and gently raised her hand toward the sky. May the goddess protect you on your journey. Her gaze was quite warm but serious as she stared. I completely understood her silent, unspoken message right then. Come back alive from that dangerous wilderness. My friend, I fully intended to. Once I left Felina, I boarded a carriage, heading straight toward the slave market. Along the journey, a fascinating thought crossed my mind. When looking at Felina a moment ago, an odd status screen appeared in my mind, revealing her level, Archmage level 16. Yet her potential was just blank question marks, way too high for me to see. Her maid, Jasmine, was a level 12 advanced knight, powerful enough to instruct at the Royal Academy. This system, it could actually scan anyone else's stats as well. Talk about a cheat. Keeping 1,000 gold coins on my person, I sent the rest of Felina's supplies back to the Rose house for safekeeping. The market was about an hour away in District 22, easily the biggest in the whole north. Once I arrived, believe me, this place was on another level. A massive arena, operating day and night. Heavy Gothic buildings completely blocked out the sun. Every single wall was covered in stone carvings, depicting knights charging and angels descending. Rose-shaped, stained glass windows cast a dim-colored glow inside. The pathways were wide yet absolutely packed with crowds, and the heavy air reeked of sweat and grime, mixed with rot and waste on both sides here. Slave traders proudly displayed rows of steel cages, stacked directly on top of each other. Inside sat captives of every race imaginable, like orcs, goblins and half-elves, snake people, minotaurs, barbarians. Some were captured soldiers, others were civilians taken by traders, and some were humans, who sold themselves just to eat. Orcs were easily the most common, super strong and highly demanded, but at 200 gold each, I could barely afford them. I quickly found the Dragonfang Guild. The sign outside had a pretty cool permanent spell on it, making anyone who looked at it understand the words instantly. It basically beamed a mental message directly into your head. The boss, a pretty jolly, chubby merchant named Macon, welcomed me warmly. He immediately started pitching his top sellers, like orcs and minotaurs, but I stopped him to ask about swamp beasts. He looked shocked but offered 3 types. Swamp orcs at 50 gold each, half fish folk for 20, and mud dwarves at 20. All pretty decent for swamp life, but none of these worked. I asked if he had stronger options. He thought about it, then shook his head. Swamps are quite rare around here, so those specialized slaves are hard to find. No lizardmen. My stomach sank. Was the system actually wrong? Suddenly, a young worker ran over and whispered quietly to Macon. I caught the words, wetland lizardmen, and rebelled again. Macon's face twisted in annoyance. He grumbled about trying to sell them to the arena, but even they turned him down. Those lizardmen were just too savage to handle. I spoke up immediately. Wetland lizardmen. What level? Macon turned to me, hesitating. He said they are all level 6 junior knights, but pretty wild, even with slave rings. He simply could not control them. He honestly suggested buying swamp orcs instead, or maybe some weird half-fish creatures instead. I definitely appreciated his honesty. He easily could have dumped them on me without warning, but I still insisted on seeing them. So I told him, maybe these lizard folk weren't quite as bad as he thought. He just laughed at that. But wait till you hear what went down a week ago. There were originally 3 squads here. Now, only 2 remained. These crazy lizard folk had been literally killing each other, or tearing apart their handlers, and numbers were dropping fast. Shrugging, he finally agreed to take me to see them. Better to sell them off quickly, he muttered, before there was only one squad left. I followed Ma King into the back hall. It was much wider than the front, filled with massive iron cages stacked 3 layers high. Somehow, the air was surprisingly clean. They kept this area pretty well maintained. We walked past rows of chained slaves, until we finally reached the center, where 20 iron cages sat on the ground. Inside were my exact targets, wetland lizard folk. These beasts looked impressive, with thick scales covering their bodies. A green and grayish-brown mix, perfect natural camouflage for swamp life. They stood straight up on muscular legs, equipped with fingers sharp as daggers. Their reptilian heads had amber eyes burning with pure fury, and the second they opened their mouths, their teeth looked like actual razors. Suddenly, my status panel activated automatically. Level 6 Junior Knights, just 1-star potential, meaning they had already hit their natural ceiling. They possessed 2 unique skills. Scales, which provided armor-like defense, and ferocity, which basically forced them into a wild, berserk state during battle, or when taking damage, completely ignoring pain, attacking without ever stopping. The second we stepped close, things got dangerously wild, screaming out curses in their harsh reptilian tongue, charging the iron bars, and biting the metal with awful, screeching noises. Even with chains on their hands, bound at their necks, they showed zero fear. Macon explained the situation to me. A week ago, there were over 340 of them. Now, only 203 survived the enslavement rings, a twisted magic device that sends pain straight to the soul. It usually breaks any slave's will instantly. Even mighty orcs couldn't resist it. But these guys, no. If a slave resists the magic way too fiercely, it detonates, blowing their head clean off. Over 100 lizard folk had already died that way. Death over submission. To any normal slave trader, that was a complete nightmare. For me, absolute perfection. A savage force of fighters who feared no pain or death if I could somehow win their loyalty. Instead of just forcing obedience, they would be a terrifying force any frontier lord could ever ask for. And since I had my unique swamp divinity core, I absolutely could. Macon offered them for 20 gold coins each. He paid way more, but I offered 10. That face of his twitched, but he saw I wasn't desperate. He knew absolutely nobody else wanted these stubborn creatures. Gritting his teeth, he finally agreed. I told him there was just one problem. My pockets only held 1,000 gold coins. 200 lizard folk at 10 gold each meant 2,000 total. I asked to pay 1,000 coins upfront, and then deliver the rest in 3 whole days. Tomorrow, my intelligence system would refresh, and I felt pretty confident I could earn the difference. If not, well, Felina and I were basically old friends by now. So borrowing another 1,000 shouldn't be too hard. But before Macon could answer, 2 lizard folk, they went wild, slamming their heads and claws violently against the metal bars, letting out absolute, terrifying fury. Then, 2 loud pops, their heads burst like watermelons. Blood splattered everywhere as those enslavement rings detonated. They fought back, enduring that soul-tearing torment until the very end. Macon's face went completely stiff. He turns around, desperately trying to apologize. But before he can finish, boom! Another explosion, another dead lizard man. The blood smell is pretty overwhelming. Macon completely snaps, 1,000 gold coins. Take them all right now, just get them out. He is absolutely done. Never again does he want to see them. I hand over the cash without hesitating once. Honestly, seeing those heads burst, and breathing in that thick copper stench makes my chest thud. Sure, I had seen corpses in the 9th District back alleys, but never anything this savage. I slowly forced my breath, and pushed the panic down. In this brutal world, weakness is a death sentence. Scenes like this will soon be totally normal. I pass Macon the heavy pouch of gold. He grabs it, getting ready to count the coins. But wait, he notices something. The rose pattern stamped on the leather. His eyes pop wide. That mark belongs only to Princess Felina. No one in the entire city would dare counterfeit it. After that, he looks at me completely differently. I tell him outright, the gold is actually a direct gift from the princess. And honestly, frontier lords are quite poor. Accepting help is just practical. He swallows hard, nodding along silently. But I can tell his mind is racing, desperately trying to guess my real identity. His respect goes up another level, especially once his servant verifies the gold is real. Next, he hands over a short control staff. It commands the brutal slave rings, locked tight around the lizards' necks. Get this, the collars drain their life force, meaning they keep working as long as they are breathing. Any rebellion triggers instant, automated torture. I order him to transport the lizard folk straight to the Rose house. He nods, but warns me some might die on the way there. Since these beasts are ticking time bombs, I quietly turn back to the cages. The lizard folk were growing restless, screaming out curses in their brutal language, eyes burning with raw defiance, even through heavy chains and sleeve rings. It was finally time to unleash my power. I reached deep into the swamp divinity core in my soul, and released my divine might. The ancient, crushing pressure of the swamp god itself. Shut up. Just 2 words. To any regular person in the room. That sounded completely normal, but to these beasts, it was literal thunder, their own god looking straight down at them. The ultimate fear, hardwired into their very nature. These proud creatures had survived torture, starvation and agony, soul-tearing pain from sleeve rings without ever breaking. But this wasn't simple pain. It was their origin. This pressure came from the very source of their existence. They'd been freshly captured and starved, beaten and locked in cages, facing death at any moment. Their bodies were still fierce, but their fragile souls were already worn thin. Within mere seconds, they all stopped thrashing around. Their fierce pride melted into trembling submission. Heads bowed down in complete, absolute silence. I felt my mental power expanding outward, searing a master mark deep into their souls. The exact second those marks locked in, you could instantly feel the change. Their hostility dissolved into quiet obedience, and something much more powerful, worship. Now, these 200 elite swamp warriors were mine. Behind me, Myken stood completely frozen. He swallowed hard. These were the exact same beasts that resisted every horrific torture his own people could devise. Absolute monsters, who would literally let their heads explode, rather than obey, and I had silenced them instantly. I spoke calmly down to the lizard folk. Just cooperate with this transport. I'll bring you straight back to the wilderness. Every remaining trace of struggle instantly vanished. Myken finally snapped out of his daze, and scrambled to bark out orders. To whole squads of level 9. Armored knights arrived to escort the lizard folk. Even these elite warriors looked uneasy about handling swamp beasts famous for their absolute savagery. But today was different. The lizard folk didn't resist. When Myken nervously asked if we could unlock their shackles to make transport a lot easier, I agreed. He tested it on a few, and they just stood there, completely calm and obedient. It was as if all their madness and violence had never even happened. Myken looked at me with something close to pure awe. How did I do it? Well, Myken didn't need to know. All that mattered was my first army was finally ready, and we were heading straight to the Rose house once the lizard folk were finally taken away. Myken told me I was welcome back anytime. The Dragonfang Guild would always give me their best prices. I thanked him and hopped into the carriage he arranged, heading back to the Rose house. Jasmine was already waiting at the door when I arrived. She told me Felina's supplies had been safely placed in the side courtyard, though the 100 craftsmen wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. Just as we were talking, the massive transport carriage pulled up, and the lizard folk slowly climbed out. 200 swamp warriors covered in gray-green scales, with bulging muscles and cold, sharp amber eyes. The guards at the door shivered just looking at them. I tipped the escort leader about 10 silver coins for his trouble, and he left happy. Jasmine asked if I had bought them as guards. I just smiled and said yes. And let me tell you, they were so much more than that. They were the actual foundation of my entire expansion. She then asked when I planned to leave for my territory. Every frontier lord gets exactly 1 month to prepare, with a possible extension up to 3 months. After that, imperial law treats you as a deserter. I told her I would decide tomorrow, but we would leave within half a month. She nodded, leading me and the lizard folk over to the side courtyard, where all the gear was stored. The yard was massive, easily bigger than most noble estates. Horses were grazing near the wagons, while a whole mountain of armor sat on the ground, gleaming with a cold, metallic light. I pulled up my status panel to check it. 1-star quality, forged from refined steel, using dwarven techniques, tailored to fit almost any humanoid, under 2 meters tall. Each set came with a sharp steel sword. 200 sets total. I gave the command. Everyone, put on the armor. The lizard folk moved immediately, helping each other strap on the heavy metal, standing at around 1.70 meters. The gear fit them pretty well. Seriously, that dark steel makes them look absolutely terrifying. Amber eyes glowed above the dark metal, holding sharp swords in their clawed hands, with thick tails, poking through custom-made openings in the back. Combined with their tough natural scales, this heavy armor pushed their overall combat power straight to a completely new level. 200 fully armed. Level 6 junior knights now stood before me in formation. Just 2 days ago, I was starving, in a tiny 10 square meter room back in the 9th district, chewing on rock-hard black bread. Now, divine power and an army, 30 supply wagons, and 1,000 gold coins. Man, talk about an absolute glow-up, right? Jasmine excused herself to attend to her own duties. I offered her a tip, just like I did the escorts, but she politely declined instead. Being her personal maid, she didn't need cash. Later, back at Rose Estate, Jasmine reported everything to Felina. She mentioned the lizard folk, and how strangely obedient they were. Beasts usually known for brutal rage, behaving just like cute, tamed kittens around me. Felina was not shocked. She just smiled and said it made perfect sense. Jasmine asked if that did not seem pretty strange, but Felina already realized what almost everyone else had missed, that a guy who could climb out of the slums, look a princess without even flinching, and casually call her a friend right to her face, he was never going to be average. She stared out her window at the blue sky, gem-like eyes hiding all her thoughts, and she stayed quiet after Jasmine left the room. I asked the lizard folk who was running their show. They all pointed to one lizard, taller and way stronger than the others by half a head. He stepped forward, kneeling instantly. His common tongue was pretty rough but totally clear. Master Haggis sends his highest regards. I ordered him to keep everyone strictly in line while we stayed in the city. Just a few days, and he obeyed. Every word I spoke was absolute law to them. Now I examined all 200 lizard folk, hoping to discover a rare hero unit among them. In this world, leveling up brings a tiny chance for an epic hero transformation. Awakening, a talent that multiplies combat power by several times, but the odds are 1 in 50,000. Sadly, none of my fighters had it. Quite a bummer, right? I called the Rose House staff for food. Good food for the lizard folk. Then I went to my room alone. Standing by the window, I watched the sunset, taking stock of things. In just days, I chose my territory, that muddy swamp, which holds a hidden fragment of divine authority. I bought 200 level 6 warriors for 1,000 gold, built a real bond with Felina Lauren. 70 gold coins still left, 30 supply wagons and 200 sets of armor. And that swamp divinity core now merged with my soul. Not bad for a guy who was chewing rock hard black bread in a slum just 3 days ago. That night, I waited until midnight. The dwarven clock towers chimed 12 times across the city. On July 10th, my intelligence system was ready to refresh. I triggered the command instantly. 5 fresh pieces of information popped up. The first report was 1 star. Some town would be attacked by harpies tomorrow. Way too far and not my problem. The second was also 1 star. But get this, it's about Felina's past. When she was little, bandits ambushed her carriage. She survived by hiding inside rose bushes, and that experience awakened her unique talent, the Rose Lord. That explained why everything around her involved roses. Her estate, her inn, even her magic. The third was a 2 star, and man, was I excited. At the black market stall 24, the one-armed, old man's stall, right next to where I bought the divine fragment. One of his stones held an ancient beast crystal core. Most of its energy was drained, but it was still incredibly powerful. If I fed it to Hagas, my strongest lizardman, it could trigger a complete bloodline evolution. No other lizardman could survive that brutal transformation. Just when I had been wishing for a hero unit, the system dropped exactly what I needed. The fourth was also 2 stars. In the slave market district 5, shop 19, a guild called Grey Mist was selling what they thought was ordinary dried earth dragon dung, but it actually came from a real adult dragon. The powerful aura had just faded with time. Soaking it in blood would restore the dragon's scent. Carrying it through the wilderness would keep all dangerous creatures away, making my long journey to the muddy swamp far safer. For a trip over 1,000 kilometers through hostile territory, this was priceless. The 5th piece was 3 stars and the most urgent. In 20 days, a massive riot would erupt 500 kilometers into the wild. Savage tribes clashing over a shattered ancient relic. If I did not leave for my territory before July 15th, that crazy chaos would block my path, delaying my journey by 7 whole months. Plus, that core fragment of swamp authority, hidden in my land, would awaken within 6 months. If I missed this window, you just know someone else would snatch it first. I had to move fast. 5 days left. No golden 6-star secrets were coming this time around. But these 5 clues combined gave me a solid plan. Upgrade Hagas with dragon dung for safe travel, and hit the road immediately. Before the wilderness exploded into war, I lay there on the bed, spinning every single piece of information in my mind, mapping tomorrow's moves. Soon, heavy sleep pulled me under. Early on July 10th, I headed to the slave market before sunrise. Thankfully, the morning fog helped mask the smell. I eventually found the Grey Mist Trading House in District 5, a small shop that did not sell slaves, but everything related to them, like shackles, chains and neck locks. Spiked whips lining the shelves. I suddenly spotted bunches of dried droppings. Most were just fresh earth dragon dung. But check this out, hidden right at the bottom, sat an older dusty pile, looking completely different from the rest. My status panel instantly confirmed it. To star quality, genuine dragon dung. Soaking it in blood would reactivate the dragon's aura, scaring off any beast while traveling through the wild. The sharp-faced shop owner, a thin man wearing a gem-studded robe, tried to sell it to me as premium, level 12 earth dragon dung at a major discount. I cut him off, saying nobody else wanted this stuff. It was losing its potency sitting on his shelf, and if I didn't need to go deep into the wild, I wouldn't take it for free. So we settled on 20 silver coins for the whole pile. That was 10 to 20 pounds of what was secretly to star dragon treasure. The merchant believed he made a brilliant sale of worthless junk. I walked right out in under 2 minutes, packed with dragon aura to shield my entire caravan, across 1,000 kilometers of hostile territory. The next day, on July 11th, I headed straight back to the black market. The one-armed old man at stall 24 recognized me instantly. The idiot who spent 20 gold on Tomb Raider items just days ago. He grinned and immediately started his pitch, claiming he had fresh stock covered in dragon blood, with gold inside. I ignored his sales pitch and quietly searched through his raw ores. None of them mattered. What I wanted was the dark stone. He was casually rolling in his hand, the one he held just to look impressive, while sitting right at his stall. But guess what? My system panel already revealed its secret, an ancient beast crystal core. Almost all of its energy was drained, but it was still absolutely extraordinary, enough to trigger a major bloodline evolution in Haga, my strongest lizardman. I calmly asked to examine it. The seller was thrilled, thinking he had hooked a whale. He claimed it held a super rare metal called silver, and started at 50 gold coins. I tossed it aside and immediately turned to leave. He chased right after me 30 gold coins, then 20. Instead, I held out 10 silver coins, and just offered them in my open hand. Without saying a single word, he stared at my hand, took a deep breath, and groaned that I was going to be the death of him. But before he even finished his sentence, the silver coins vanished from my hand, and the dark stone was shoved right into it. He thought he had fleeced a fool, selling a basic river rock for 10 silver coins. Meanwhile, I'm laughing, walking away with the key to creating my first hero unit. Both legendary treasures secured, the ancient beast crystal core and the dragon dung, sold for a total of 30 silver coins, using secret info to build wealth. I quietly felt pretty amazing back at Rose's house, and Jasmine was waiting again. 100 slave craftsmen, the helpers Felina promised me. They stood in the courtyard like rigid statues, terrified of the armored lizard folk nearby. Jasmine explained they were swamp dwellers, a race that preferred damp, dark places. They were naturally gifted at building and crafting, but they were somehow incredibly timid. Felina had brought them from another city, specially for me. I checked their attributes. Level 4, 1-star potential, with a racial talent called Craftsman's Heart, which gave them extra creativity, plus amazing skill in building tools. Born builders, exactly what a frontier lord needs. Then, Jasmine handed me a scroll, a magic map to guide me through the wilderness, directly to my territory. Most frontier lords got maps lasting 3 months, before the magic faded away. But this was a personal gift from Felina, clearly far superior. When I opened it, the terrain moved like a living painting. Mountains, rivers, trees, all flowing. A 6-pointed star marked the muddy swamp at the end, with a flashing dot showing my current location. Seriously, it was like a fantasy version of GPS. The sheer quality told me how valuable this gift was. I owed Felina a serious debt, and I fully intended to repay her someday. Jasmine wished me a glorious return, placed her hand on her chest, bowed, and walked away without looking back. I turned back to the swamp dwellers. An elderly one with curly hair and a hunched back stepped forward, bowed deeply, introducing himself as Bane, When I checked his attributes, my jaw literally dropped. He was a level 5 hero. With 2-star potential, his handy hero talent is construction. He can plan out massive building projects. This cuts down construction costs while boosting durability. The guy has incredible craftsmanship and amazing planning skills. He is literally the perfect hero for developing a territory. Tomorrow morning, he'll be joining him on the journey, and that his skills will be vital going forward. He humbly accepts as RMC reviews his entire army. Over 100 swamp dweller craftsmen, and 200 heavily armored wetland lizard folk. Can you imagine building a territory with this massive army? Those 200 level 6 knights alone would usually cost 40,000 gold coins. Now add the crafters and 30 wagons of gear. Even rich nobles, families would have to empty out their entire bank vaults just to match what he has. He commands Bane to personally inspect every single supply wagon and check if they still need anything. Buy everything today. They are heading to the wild tomorrow. Bane is excited but pretty anxious, especially when he has to walk right past those scary lizard folk. Our MC makes it absolutely clear that from now on, every single lizard man is now his ally. Their weapons are strictly reserved for enemies, so Bane steals his resolve and gets right to work. These loaded supplies are unreal. Felina really thought of everything: food, clothing and tools, all packed into 30 massive wagons. One wagon alone holds tons of Naya rice, a rare 1-star magic food made by an ancient saint. Just half a pound can keep a man full for 5 days straight. Honestly, major powers would literally hoard this stuff. Yet she gave him an entire wagon, which is enough to feed 300 people for half a year. With all preparations checked, he turns to the absolute tallest, most intimidating powerhouse among the lizard folk. Haggis, follow me. The ancient beast crystal core is safe in his pocket. It is finally time to evolve his fiercest warrior into a hero. After bringing Haggis the savage lizard man inside, he pulls out a strange black mineral, something he grabbed from the black market. No joke, ancient beast energy core locked deep inside. Sure, most of its power has faded over time, but it can still trigger a massive bloodline evolution. Hags, are you willing to become a weapon in my hands? His heart skips a beat. To become a true hero. An absolute madness flickered in his golden eyes. He suddenly drops to his knees, head hitting the floor, speaking with absolute humbleness and desperate intensity. My lord, he declares, I am ready to become your blade. I offer my soul to you, wherever your eyes lead. That is where I will go, pushing for more power. This is just the natural instinct of every living creature. And being a hero is the ultimate dream for most. Right now, endless nights of dreaming about this very chance are finally right in front of him. Lyre tells him to rise, giving a slow nod. Then he passes over the strange, dark stone. Hags does not hesitate, squeezing it with all his might. A sharp crack echoes. Deep fractures spider web across the rock, and then it completely shatters. Right inside those broken pieces, a tiny object about the size of a thumb appears, glowing with a faint, deep red light. Raw, vibrant energy instantly radiates from it, almost like he is holding a tiny sun. Eat it to complete your transformation. Hag swallows his deep excitement, breathing heavily, and gulps it down. A second later, his body suddenly explodes with fierce energy. A brutal power makes his face warp. His muscles go weak, sending him crashing down, growling like a wild animal. His entire frame twitches with violent spasms. It looks like he is enduring absolute, torturous pain. Man, just watching this sends shivers down your spine. Lyre glances at the details for that 20-second shop, dealing minerals right by the black market gate. This merchants or holds a hidden ancient beast's crystal core. Although most of its energy has faded, it's still pretty extraordinary. It can be fed to the strongest wetland lizardmen. Hags, to evolve his bloodline. Other lizardmen simply can't survive this brutal, agonizing transformation. A simple piece of intel, but incredibly precise. Without pain, how can one taste sweet success? Lyre waits silently, watching Hags' face grow more twisted and fierce. Honestly, we can't even imagine the agony he's enduring. This creature is normally almost immune to pain, yet even his ring of servitude cannot suppress this. The entire process drags on for 3 hours. During this grueling transformation, Hags' body visibly starts swelling. He shoots up to 1.85 meters tall, while his aura becomes as aggressive as a wild beast. Trembling heavily on the ground, he still radiates a fierce, brutal energy. Another hour slowly passes, and Hags finally awakens from his transformation. He slowly pulls himself up. His 1.85-meter body looks massive, bursting with pure power. His dwarven armor is stretched incredibly tight by muscles. Those rock-solid muscles bulge so much that even the heavy plate armor cannot hide them. The lizardman's head is now terrifyingly fierce, boasting a blood-filled jaw and knife-like teeth. Those amber eyes look aggressive. His 10-centimeter claws shimmer like cold blades, sharp as daggers. Ordinary armor wouldn't stand a chance. He strides forward and kneels before Lear, bowing his head, "My lord, from this day forward, I am your weapon, ready to cut down all your enemies." Hags feels an insane surge of power within. He is so hyped up, he cannot even hold back. And just like that, we have a newly evolved hero. This is a moment he has dreamed of for countless nights, and now his dream is real. And every single bit of this power is a gift from his lord. True greatness needs no words. Liar's lips curled slightly. This was officially his very first hero. Even living heroes, like Bane, played a quite crucial battle role. Hoggies alone could easily decimate hundreds, or maybe even thousands of Banes. He stared down. The wetland lizard hero knelt before him. Wait till you see his new attribute panel. Popping up in his mind, Hoggies was mid-level. Knight level 7 with potential at 2 stars. Max level is 9, with racial talent of amphibious life. He possessed a pretty unique lung organ, letting him hold his breath for a long time and breathe underwater for short periods. Hero talent, regeneration. He had a special body that could heal itself after any injury. By consuming energy, he could recover quite quickly, and even lost limbs would grow right back. Health points, 1000. Skills. Scales, 2 stars. A passive skill giving him almost steel-like defense, cutting damage by 30%. Ferocity, 2 stars. Whenever he attacks or takes any damage, he turns fierce, boosting stats by 30%, fighting relentlessly without feeling any pain. Blood rage next. After tasting blood, his size expands by 20% and strength by 40%. Equipment, none. Evaluation, savage swamp beast. Liar's eyes sparkled. Post-transformation, just watch. Hoggy's strength had shot way up. His potential leapt from 1 star to 2 stars, and his level cap finally reached 9. Even his base level jumped from 6 to 7. At the same time, he unlocked an incredibly powerful hero talent, regeneration. Whenever he gets hurt, he can consume his energy and blood to heal up, even regrowing any severed limbs. This is definitely a skill that changes everything completely. In battle, these already pretty fierce and pain-tolerant lizard men are unstoppable. He gained a massive, rapid recovery ability. It literally reminded me of the Hulk. Honestly, isn't he basically a younger, fantasy version of the Hulk? Plus, Haggis unlocked a brand new attribute, Vitality, a stat completely unique to the Night Path. But you must become a hero to awaken it. This Vitality boosts his skills and cranks up his damage. It is a sign of elite combat power. Only those with Vitality can truly be called a hero. However, mages are different from the start. They already have magic, which is why they call them mage lords. Knights have it harder, needing hero status for real power. Apprentice mages get to access them early, and Haggis's 2 original 1-star skills got upgraded straight to 2 stars, massively boosting his base stats. Plus, he unlocked an epic new skill, Frenzied Blood, a pretty brutal skill. Honestly, after becoming a real hero, Haggis's combat power completely skyrocketed. Now he can easily tear through 2 or 3 squads of swamp lizardmen entirely alone. Watch this, that's what a hero unit does. A real fighter, unlike support-focused heroes like Bane, those focusing on everyday skills will only ever be followers. Only strength decides fate. Get up, go back, and manage your companions. Tomorrow morning, we set off for our new territory. That place will be our future home. Haggis took a deep breath and bowed his head respectfully. As you wish, he said, then left the room. That's when the system quietly pinged. New intelligence unlocked. You successfully trained a hero unit. And you've received an extra bonus tip. There is a magical plant called Whiteflower, longleaf grass growing deep in the muddy swamp. It contains rare energy. Once Haggis eats it, his potential will instantly increase to 3 stars. Liar was completely stunned at first. Then, he couldn't help but smile, while reading over the fresh details. Wait, is there seriously more info? This white flower leaf grass. It can boost Haggis's potential from 2 stars to 3 stars. Now, a 2-star hero is pretty decent, but their level cap stops at 9. Pushing him to 3 stars makes him a high-tier hero. The biggest benefit is clear. His maximum level cap finally jumps up to 12. Combat power gets a massive boost, and it is not just some basic stat increase. Absolutely incredible, right? Backed by this overpowered intelligence system, Hagas might actually become an elite powerhouse down the road. Right at this moment, Hagas marches straight back into the Rose houseside yard. The moment the wetland lizardmen feel him coming, confused expressions cover all their faces. They grow restless, sensing the aura on Lord Hagas. Once Hagas confirms it, they are left utterly speechless. Pure fanatical excitement burns in their eyes. What did the Lord of Domination actually give Hagas? How could he evolve into a hero in just a few hours? Long live the god of swamps. Could it be that their lord is a divine being, sent down to save them all? Watching this unfold, Bane looks more and more stunned. Only he knows the brutal hardships and trials he endured to finally become a hero. He never expected a hero title could be granted, like some cheap, instant reward. To Bane, Lyre is suddenly incredibly mysterious. After getting some rest on the night of July 12th, Lyre rallies his army at the break of dawn and packs up supplies. Paying his bill at the Rose House, he rides the convoy's best black horse, guiding his swamp folk to catch up with 30 wagons, packed with goods as they slowly leave town. 200 perfectly organized wetland lizardmen march right behind his guards. The entire army moves out into the open wilderness. He has been waiting for this exact moment. Seriously, who would not be hyped right now? In the quiet morning dawn, there are barely any people walking the streets. Strangely, this wide street is pretty empty. Its thick bluestone road is over 150 meters wide, with 8 separate carriage lanes on each side, leaving plenty of room for pedestrians. 20 grand roads like this, they crisscross and connect the entire city of Lorraine. Just hauling these massive stones into the city was an absolutely massive project. Houses with pointed, steep roofs rise up proudly along both sides of the street. These old homes are quite exquisite, interlocking like jagged teeth. Floating colorful glass reflects light, while the highly detailed hero carvings on the walls whisper stories of the city's ancient past and glory. Right at the main intersection stands a towering clock tower, standing over 20 meters tall with a dwarf cast. Its short brass clock ticks steadily away. At exactly 3 and 6, 9 and 12 o'clock, the whole city echoes with its deep, booming chimes. Wait for it. You can hear the march of time from anywhere. The Lauren family spent 1,000 years building this masterpiece. It is the strongest shield for the northern province of the Griffin Empire to defend against dangerous wilderness invasions. A sparkling jewel just past the busy streets. A convoy slowly passes through the massive and majestic city gate of Lauren. Lyre looks back at the towering city walls, which look like giant, unmoving mountains. They stand over 100 meters high, and the stone is pretty heavily scarred by wars. Like a veteran of many battles, various heavy siege weapons line the battlements, catapults and heavy crossbows. Countless arrow towers are tightly packed. At the gate, 2 giant statues, standing 120 meters tall with swords. They stand majestically like divine guardians, their giant swords crossing midair. They seem to warn the entire outside world that Lorraine City is completely invincible. Those 2 giant statues were rebuilt over 10 times, and after every war, they rise taller. They are pretty much its symbols. Suddenly, an eagle cry shatters the quiet, forcing Lior to look up. Hundreds of imperial crests fill the sky. Massive griffins with 10-meter wingspans soar above, gliding so smoothly. Imagine looking up at this insane sky defense line. They can launch instantly, backed by 10 or even 100 times more reinforcements if needed. Lior stares deeply at this magnificent fortress. A sudden wave of pride washes over him. His own lands must become just as grand. He signals without a second thought, ordering his troops to move faster. Endless stretches of farmland lie just outside, going on as far as anyone can look. Lush green wheat waves softly under the open sky, making for a truly stunning view. After marching more than 10 kilometers, the great city slowly fades away. Honestly, this magical world is just built different. Even shy craftsmen like the mud people possess way more strength than humans, so their marching speed is not slow. Starting at the crack of dawn, they stop to rest by a roadside well. By noon, they cover about 30 kilometers in hours, and nobody looks all that tired yet. Last night's meal was hearty noi rice, meaning they do not need to cook for days. This saves them a massive amount of hassle. The lands surrounding Lorraine City are a completely safe zone for hundreds of kilometers. Guards patrol daily, and the moment they spot threats, and they wipe them out. Lorraine City features wide roads of paved bluestone, making travel incredibly smooth. After washing his face with clean water, Lior feels his fatigue fade as they push forward. At sunset, they cover another 40 kilometers before pitching tents. Covering 70 kilometers in a day is already quite fast. This also gave Lior a fresh perspective on the hidden strength of normal folks. In this fantasy world, nighttime is incredibly dangerous, so traveling at night is just asking for trouble. They arrived at a small town. Their caravan finally halted. The next day, they pushed ahead until noon, finally leaving the straight road. But once off the bluestone, the path became uneven, turning to muddy tracks that slowed them down. The stretch from Loren City to the wild, 100 to 200 kilometers out, is controlled. Every couple of days, Griffin patrols sweep the area. If they spot a massive pack of monsters, they instantly wipe them out to neutralize the threat. Still, a few stray beasts manage to slip through. This region is currently off limits for expansion by landowners. It remains completely under Loren City's control, and the officials constantly send groups of people out to build brand new villages and farm the new land. Heading deeper into the wilderness, 200 to 300 kilometers out is guarded. Every 2 weeks, Loren City sends out patrols. If they spot any massive gatherings of wild beasts, they dispatch troops to totally eliminate them, preventing those threats from ever reaching the controlled zone. This is also the exact area where most landowners choose to expand. Sizable settlements are built here because they sit within Loren City's safe influence and avoid any direct danger from the wilderness. It is considered incredibly safe. 300 to 500 kilometers out is monitored. The city keeps a distant eye on things, but even if massive monster hordes gather, they won't step in unless those beasts cross into the guarded zone. This is where the danger starts getting incredibly serious. Past 500 kilometers lies the untouched wilderness. Loren officials only dispatch the elite Griffin Corps to patrol, on occasion, to stop large enemy forces from gathering there. But even those elite forces suffer losses to orcs, barbarians, snake people, grey dwarves, and dead. Basically every race is here. Each of them has a stronghold deep in this wilderness. Their territories vary quite a bit. Now get this, rumors say beyond the wilderness, there lies an incredibly powerful ogre empire far off. Their strength is quite comparable to Loren City, but the journey there is just way too long, and the thick wilderness blocks it all, so we cannot confirm if they actually entered their zone. 100 kilometers away, Lior quickly ordered Bane to take out some dried dragon dung and place it right into a clay basin. Bane stared down at the dried dragon dung with quite some worrying. Master, if dragon dung is stored too long, it will lose its pretty potent scent over time, and its effectiveness will decrease quite a lot. He looked rather frustrated checking over the supplies. Earlier he asked Lior, who said everything was ready, so Bane did not check carefully. Now he realizes he was being careless. Without dragon dung, the monster encounters might increase many times over. This dangerous trip will become far more difficult now. Lior looked at the hunched swamp hero, whose face was covered in wrinkles, and smiled. Don't worry, guys, this actually isn't dragon dung. Hagras, add some blood to it, he said. Waving his hand, the swamp lizard hero behind him immediately stepped forward. He grabbed a strong, fat rooster weighing over 10 pounds from the cart. He twisted its neck and snapped its head off. Blood splattered as the wings flapped wildly, soaking the entire clay basin in just an instant. The dry dragon dung was soaked completely through. Within just a few breaths, the surrounding magical energy seemed to get drawn in, like a black hole pouring straight into the dome. An indescribable, heavy pressure radiated from the dome. Everyone felt a cold chill run down their spines. It was as if some terrifying, abyssal creature was watching them from the shadows. Dragon dung. Bane stumbled a few steps back. His legs trembled as he gasped in surprise. His gaze shifts once again. How do adults even get their hands on this? Dragons are the absolute peak predators in this world. Pure-blooded dragons grow into something truly extraordinary. And by old age, anyone linked to a dragon, even those with mixed bloodlines, wields incredible power. The absolute best way to survive is avoiding danger. Nobody in their right mind wants to face dragon might. Honestly, it is suicide. Lil nods quietly, keeping his thoughts to himself, and signals the army to push forward. A dragon's presence can be felt 2 or 3 kilometers away. More sensitive beasts will easily detect it from over 10 kilometers. This simple trick makes their entire caravan pretty safe. After traveling for 2 whole days, vehicles 13 and 14 cross the safe boundary, entering a much more dangerous warning zone. Currently, they are over 200 kilometers from Lauren City, deep in the wilderness tonight. They pitch their tents after dinner, but Lil stays wide awake, waiting in silence as midnight approaches. Finally, the clock on his screen reaches midnight. On July 15th, the interface in his head quietly displays brand new data. The golden system cooldown is over, asking him if he wants a fresh update now. Leo gets instantly hyped. We finally get that crucial third information refresh. The moment he hits confirm, displaying brand new details on the screen. Intel 1, 20 kilometers ahead in the Red Forest. You will encounter a deadly ambush by 3 small ground elf squads, where the strongest leader is level 5. Intel 2, the Grand Chief Administrator of Lauren City. At the Duke's residence is your father's old ally, sharing a deep friendship with him. Intel 3, the genius girl Felina reached level 17 just yesterday, becoming the youngest Grand Mage in the entire history of the Griffin Empire. But her breakthrough remains a secret. Now she's busy collecting all kinds of rare roses. What's her next opportunity to advance? 2-star Intel, traveling along the road for 2 days. By noon on the 17th, a flock of man-eating crows will fly overhead, attracting level 13 monsters, but using triple the amount of dragon droppings, can drive away those carrion-eating crows, and avoid the storm birds. 2 stars number 5, a band of barbarian blood thieves will appear, right in your path. By the marsh reeds on the evening of the 19th, you'll need to hide dragon droppings, and rest for 3 hours to avoid them. There are 5 pieces of intelligence in total. 2 are 1-star and 3 are 2-star. Lear's eyes narrow, as he carefully reads the intel. First, there is an upcoming Earth Gnome attack. These gnomes are much larger, and a more savage branch of gnomes, but their highest level is only 5, split into just 3 small groups, so this only rates as 1-star. Even if they manage to attack, they won't cause any real damage. Now, here's where things get pretty interesting. The chief officer of the Lord Land's estate is an old comrade of Lear's father. This detail wasn't in Lear's memories at all. It looks like on his next trip to Land City, he really should visit this guy. That's a valuable connection he can't waste. Now, the third piece of intelligence. Did Felina make another breakthrough? Level 17, the youngest Grand Mage in the Griffin Empire. Impressive, even if she had some advantages. Her talent is undeniable, a true prodigy. Her next step is level 18, can you believe that? She's incredible, only 24 years old. If she keeps this pace up for a few years, and becomes an extraordinary mage, her future will be absolutely limitless. The last intel, about collecting more roses for her breakthrough. What is also highly interesting is her talent, the Rose Lord. It is clearly related. He needs to check if wilderness roses exist, and send them to her before she fully develops. This connection is honestly worth way more than gold. The 4th and 5th pieces of intel warn him about great danger. Honestly, it shows just how brutal the wilds are. Storm birds, giant vultures, and barbarian blood thieves. Needless to say, they are all highly dangerous enemies. Without good intel, facing them would be terrifying. After reading through everything twice, Lyra feels quite confident. His deep tension finally melts away, and he falls into deep sleep. Next morning, a lizard man wakes him. He packs up and gets ready to head out. By noon, after traveling about 20 kilometers, the convoy arrives at a massive red leaf forest. A tiny, bright crimson leaf drifts in the wind, flickering like a flame. Against the deep green background, it actually makes the place feel super alive. But Lyra's eyes sharpen instantly. He sniffs the air, smelling goblin. Watch out, because goblins are lurking in this forest. Get ready for battle. These armored wetland lizard men instantly grow restless and highly excited. They might act gentle as kittens, right in front of Lyra himself, but deep down, they remain savage hunters. Lyra leaves a squad behind to guard the wagons, while he takes Hags and the other squads into the red leaf forest. Teams range from 10 to 100, up to thousands in a massive army. The system of this fantasy world is straightforward and simple. As a lord carving out his territory, constant combat and bloodshed will be the main themes for a long time. But since he lived a peaceful modern life, he had never even seen a chicken get killed, let alone survived actual, brutal combat. He was just some fallen noble heir, struggling in the filthy slums, surrounded by rotting corpses and dirty water, never facing a real battlefield. Though, to survive, he must adapt to this crazy world. This battle must be his start. Lyra's cold gaze locks onto red leaf forest. The wetland lizardmen instantly go alert, amber eyes glowing with pure madness and brutality, noses twitching, and they suddenly look in one direction. Master, they found the goblin hideout. Their unique sense of smell might not quite match a hunting hound's, but it beats any human's. Lyre nods, ordering Harges to lead the charge. He has two skills, Swamp Blessing and Divine Power. Divine Power isn't for direct combat, but Swamp Blessing, super strong. It unleashes a life energy burst, covering a 3x3 meter area to speed up healing, restoring up to 20% health, and even 30%. For swamp creatures, it has zero destructive power, but as a healing spell, it is pretty strong. Only 3 Earth Elemental squads are ready, but for this first clash, he absolutely cannot afford any surprises. Leaving a small squad behind to protect themselves, Harges slowly leads the remaining 9 squads. Deeper into the dark, red woods, these armored beasts, looking cold and fierce, begin hunting within 200 meters. Recently transformed, Harges, a 2-star marshland lizardman hero, stands highly excited on a small hill. Look, dozens of green-skinned figures crawling. Under the hill sits a wooded pass, a ground goblin with huge ears, stretching almost to the back of its head, mouth like pincers, packed with sharp teeth. Its nose was hooked and triangular, large blue eyes and a sturdy build. Over 1.75 meters tall. They look pretty strong, compared to the typical runts of its kind. This beast was absolutely massive, a level for novice knight tier ground goblin. Extremely proud, daring, and way too confident, never admitting defeat to anyone. 60% less brain power, but its morale is high, packing strong attack. It raised that heavy weapon with both hands, ready to unleash. Maximum power, dealing 20% extra damage. It even has a chance to paralyze you. System evaluation, low life form. These filthy creatures, stinky trash actually trying to play with us. They really thought they could sneak up. You just know they're asking for death. Hargs tightly gripped his steel dagger. Coldly, he orders kill. Roaring loud, 9 squads of marshland lizardmen charge like arrows at the waiting ground goblins. The monsters instinctively turn toward the noise, seeing fierce lizardmen warriors charging straight at them. But thanks to their unique racial talents, they feel zero fear. Instead, they roar and counterattack, treating the fully armored lizardmen warriors like helpless little lambs, waiting to be slaughtered. Seeing the enemy rush forward instead of running, Hargs is absolutely furious. He feels his royal pride getting trampled on. How dare mere bugs challenge a dragon? He charges ahead first, swinging his steel blade with violent force. A ground goblin roars back, swinging a wooden club. Check out this clash right here. Crack! That steel blade packs unreal power, slicing right through the wooden stick, shaking the monster's very soul, slicing straight through the shoulder, literally ripping half its body apart. Bones shatter as blood explodes everywhere. Red mist sprays the battlefield. One clean kill, but Hargs is still furious. Pure rage. So he keeps slicing them down like a maniac. The ruler quietly watched from the shadows. These lowlifes deserve to die. The blade swung. No special tactics or hero energy needed here. Just raw violence. They cut down the earth spirits one after another. The lizard soldiers behind them saw the danger and hurried forward. Any longer delay, and these spirits would be gone. Faced with a group of crazed wetland lizards, the earth spirits had zero chance to fight back. Even hitting the lizard soldiers with wooden sticks only made a useless clanging sound. Honestly, it was just a brutal, one-sided slaughter. Leo watched all of this from behind. This entire fight lasted less than 2 quick minutes. These 3 squads of earth spirits were completely overrun by the wetland lizards. No survivors left, just the heavy stench of blood, broken limbs and spilled guts lay everywhere. Crimson grass and trees, and every bit of it wildly stimulated his nerves. Compared to that scene of wetland lizards, shattering and blowing up heads in the slave yard, this was 100 times more intense. Leo's heart trembled, but he refused to look away from the battlefield. His gaze stayed completely firm as he stepped directly into the bloody chaos. Walking through the scattered remains, he stood before Hags, who was covered in blood, patting his companion's shoulder with genuine admiration. Good work, Hags. His voice was somewhat hoarse, yet completely determined. Then he turned around to look back at the horrifying battlefield. Staring at the scattered bodies, his eyes grew colder. Believe me, it's only beginning. War and endless slaughter will only continue to grow as their territory continues to expand, constantly showing up. Hags felt an inexplicable change happening to his ruler. His aura grew much sharper, and as their eyes met, somehow, he felt a strange sense of unease. This rather low-key battle finally came to an end, marking the start of their wilderness exploration. After finally regaining his composure, Lyre waved his hand, ordering Haggis forward and his squad to clean up the battlefield. But those goblins, being such poor creatures, still struggled to survive in this wilderness, with almost nothing to gain from searching. They found absolutely nothing and gave up. They regrouped, sending the two lizardmen teams back out to scout ahead, while Lyre led the main force at a safe distance to prevent any highly unexpected surprises. But even a 2-star dragon droppings emitted a pretty strong pressure that was quite intimidating. Even deep inside the wilderness, they had not been ambushed by monsters, if not for the highly unique racial talent of the Earth Goblin. These small creatures might never have dared get close to that dragon aura. But get this, they've already marched into day 2. Dawn on July 17th, the convoy set out, and Lyre ordered 3 soaked portions of dragon droppings. By noon, he increased that to 4 portions. Each portion of dragon droppings could emit real dragon's might for 5 days before quickly fading. These 10 pounds of droppings were quite enough to reach the swamp. Look closely, that overwhelming power from 4 portions made the naturally timid swamp dwellers tremble. Even knowing it was just dragon droppings, they still felt a deep sense of unease, constantly glancing back at the clay basin behind them. Even the fierce lizard men showed clear agitation. With dragons sitting at the top of the food chain, they carried a terrifying presence that deeply shook ordinary creature spirits. Bane, a naturally timid swamp hero, felt quite restless and pretty confused by Lyre's orders, but he didn't dare speak. He could only swallow his doubts and keep moving forward in terror. Screams pierced the air. Right at noon, agonizing shrieks echoed across the sky. Lyra looked up, his heart pounding. Countless crows suddenly flooded his vision. Every single bird was about half an arm long, pitch black with terrifyingly long beaks. Their numbers formed a dark tide covering the sky. These were level 5 scavenger crows. Instantly, the caravan grew tense. Swamp dwellers shook. Their faces were filled with terror, desperately wishing they could hide beneath the heavy wheels. The wetland lizardmen drew their steel blades. Eyes fierce, they prepared for bloody warfare. But get this, just as the pressure peaked, the dark horde of flying monsters reached within 1 kilometer of the caravan. Suddenly, they seemed to smack into an invisible mountain, veering sharply away. Flying off in the opposite direction, they narrowly avoided the convoy again. Boom! Among the crows, a blinding bolt of lightning suddenly exploded in an instant. Dozens of crows, covered in black smoke, plummeted down. Then, a terrifying roar of thunder exploded. It felt like the opening act of an epic show. Silver dragons danced wildly in the heavens. Blinding thunder and lightning continuously split the dark tide, constantly lighting up the sky. The deafening thunder made everyone tremble. Lyra focused his gaze, spotting a group of massive birds. Their wings spanned 7 or 8 meters, cloaked in lightning, crashing through the scavenger crows, mercilessly hunting down these level 5 creatures. Level 13 storm thunderbirds, over 100 of them. By comparison, the elite griffin army of Loren City only has an average level of 12. The wilderness, a reckless slaughter, was unfolding in the air. Those storm thunderbirds wielded pure lightning, obliterating crows like nothing. The whole sky smelled like scorched feathers, if the flock had not steered clear. Even with the birds not being targeted, shocks radiating from those thunderbirds would have wrecked the convoy. Those aerial beasts move insanely fast. After a few strikes, the terrified crows bolted, rapidly vanishing into the distance. At sunrise, Lyre was pretty damn confused. Why? Because he had just ordered way more dragon dung. Bang's expression, however, completely shifted. He stared at Lyre with pure, unadulterated awe. Their lord clearly possessed some kind of insane power to predict danger long before it hit. Honestly, in a brutal wasteland, that is basically a cheat code. But this close call did not rattle him. Quite the opposite. It actually made him way more confident about what's next. To avoid any other surprises, Lyre acted fast. He immediately ordered the troop to double their pace. They pushed hard for over 10 miles, before finally slowing back down. Marching through this savage territory was brutal. The real nightmare was not just the monsters or wild beasts. The roads were absolutely garbage. Luckily, the massive war horses of this fantasy world pulled those heavy wagons like literal freight trucks. Without them, trying to rush this trek would have broken anyone's spirit. Face it, long treks are incredibly boring. After 2 full days of marching, On the afternoon of the 19th, Liar suddenly halted. He ordered the lizardmen to unpack the dragon dung and pitch camp right in the tall grass. Nobody got why they were stopping so early. But when Liar ordered absolute silence and had the horses muzzled, everyone finally realized the truth. They all held their breath. At dusk, the dirt beneath them began to shake. It felt like an entire army was riding past. In another direction, the shaking was weak. But the threat was only 2 or 3 kilometers away. If the dragon droppings weren't destroyed, it would definitely attract unwanted attention, even though they had no idea who was approaching. Facing a massive cavalry unit out in the wild was incredibly dangerous. Only Liar knew the absolute nightmare they just avoided. These wilderness bandits represent a massive threat to everyone. They are utterly brutal, terrifying raiders who prey on passing caravans. Where they pass, only blood and corpses remain. The savage barbarian tribes are the main source of these raiders, and they are wild, violent, and just love to raid. Can you really blame anyone for avoiding this wilderness? 500 kilometers away, a single bandit ambush can easily wipe out a new lord. Everyone came to build new domains, not to die right after surviving a crisis. Liar finally relaxed a little. He sent the lizard men to stand guard, letting everyone rest up in peace. They marched hard during the day and slept at night, which was their standard travel routine. But the dark wilderness became much more dangerous, requiring them to stay incredibly alert. Liar just stayed awake, because tomorrow morning was the 20th, which meant a fresh intelligence update was finally arriving. Trekking through this wild land is packed with terrifying, unknown dangers. For most lords exploring new lands, simply traveling forward takes an immense amount of effort. Scouts have to go 20 or 30 miles ahead just to spot incoming danger, constantly risking brutal monster attacks at any moment. But honestly, for Bane, things got pretty boring. Every day was just marching, and even more marching. Luckily, those dragon droppings kept almost all beasts away. Occasionally, their great lord ordered the army to speed up, resting right there or taking cover in thick forests. While waves of danger passed, they slipped right past without any trouble. Now, our swamp dweller was convinced. His lord had a freakishly sharp danger sense, awareness. Like, what if he can actually see the future? Okay, that part was just wild imagination, but that danger sense, entirely real. He saw it during their 2-week trek. His respect for Leo was shooting through the roof. In just over 2 weeks, he was filled with absolute fanatic loyalty. Following the strong is just basic instinct for everyone here, particularly in a harsh world like Noah. That rule gets dialed to 11. Not just him, but all swamp dwellers and marsh lizardmen too. It was midday on August 4th. The team finally rested since departing on July 12th. Lil had been trekking through the wild for exactly 22 days, pushing hard by day, resting under darkness. Their magic map showed only 30 kilometers remaining to reach their goal, the muddy swamp. That glowing 6-pointed star marker was right there. Leo was seriously hyped by midday today. His new lands were within reach. Time to build his own city. This is where his real legend begins. Move fast before sunset. We are almost at our land. Hearing this, their spirits soared. Everyone practically started marching. As the sun dipped under the horizon, the heat was still brutal. But then, a refreshing breeze hit them. Instant relief for the team. Leo smiled and looked right up. Way out on the horizon, a stunning 7-colored rainbow stretched across the sky. The sunset was a blazing orange, burning bright like fire, mixing beautifully with that rainbow. He could even spot the steam. Steam rises from the intense heat. On the magic map, his marker merges with the star hexagram. The swamp is fully claimed. We finally made it. We are here. I can feel the swamp calling. Is this going to be our new home? It is incredibly huge compared to our old home. All praise the goddess of beauty. Everyone is thrilled as the mudmen dance. And even the brutal wetland lizardmen are totally pumped. After traveling for over 2 weeks through the wild, surviving thousands of miles and brutal hardships, they have finally arrived there safely. Lear's heart is absolutely bursting with joy. His emotions simply explode. Lear himself is incredibly excited. At last, they are here. This is his domain, the exact spot where our journey starts. Right at that moment, the swamp god spirit inside, and the magical seed within his mind, suddenly start to glow softly. Lear instinctively looks out at the swamp, hidden behind the tall grass, sensing something deep within the soil. An ancient, sleeping power is calling him, pulling him like a desperate traveler seeking water. Master Bane suddenly interrupts his thoughts, sounding pretty damn excited. This Mudman hero says, "There is so much moisture here. There has to be a massive water vein nearby." To Mudmen, this swamp is their true home. Their previous swamp completely dried up when its water vanished, forcing them out and leading to their capture. A massive water source is key to keeping this place alive. You can feel the insane potential. Lear calms his mind and speaks cheerfully, hoping everyone can get some good rest tonight. Tomorrow, we will explore the swamp further. He needs to think, planning exactly where to build his territory and how to expand his domain next. Most importantly, today is August 4th, early morning. Time for the latest system intelligence drop. Over the past few days, on the 20th, 25th, and 30th, he received 3 updates, all warned of looming threats ahead. He relied on this vital intel to bypass several deadly monster ambushes that could have easily destroyed his convoy. Finally, he has reached the muddy swamp, over 1,000 kilometers from Loren City. Sure, it looked easy, but the reality was terrifying. How brutal the past weeks had been. They pitched camp and lit fires to start cooking. Once dinner was finished, Lear stepped outside. Above him, a thin crescent moon hung, casting a soft, pale white glow. The daytime heat was finally fading, and a refreshing, cool breeze swept in. Lear felt surprisingly relaxed, enjoying the gentle night air in peace. Lear spotted Haggis nearby, who was just finishing up organizing the night watch. Looking at this loyal hero he had raised, Lear waved him over, gesturing for him to sit on the grass. Haggis hesitated, visibly thrilled, before carefully sitting down. Lear watched his loyal follower and spoke up gently. "Haggis, I never really asked before. Where is your home?" Haggis paused, a touch of deep sorrow in his eyes. "My lord, our swamp was conquered by brutal orcs long ago. I had to lead my tribe to wander the wilderness, but during a clash with some serpent men, we were captured by passing human slavers." The word home felt completely foreign to him. "You and I both know how cruel this world is. The strong claim territory and build massive cities, while the weak can only wander the wilderness." Haggis paused, hesitating once more. "But after serving you, I found my true purpose." His eyes lit up with absolute hope. "Following you is the greatest honor of our lives." Lear gave them a true purpose, making sure they know exactly who they are fighting for. Such things might seem pretty minor, but to him, they are incredibly vital. Hearing the sincere words of this lizard hero, Leo felt quite touched by it. Somehow, he felt closer to this strange world. He reached out and patted Haggis on the shoulder. "From now on, this is going to be our home." Haggis stood frozen, wanting to say something, but in the end, he was speechless. He simply nodded in reply. Right then, a strange warmth filled his heart. It had been way too long. It seemed they understood each other without any words. They remained on the grass until dawn broke. As the calendar flipped from August 4th to August 5th, the information system interface inside Leo's mind updated again. The cooldown cycle was finally over, giving him the option to refresh the data now. His excitement surged. His eyes flashed with absolute anticipation. He hits refresh. Here we go. 5 new alerts popped up one by one. First, dead center in the swamp. A massive, flat clearing spans 2 kilometers. It is the absolute best spot to establish territory. Off to the right, there is a winding, narrow path leading straight to the central area. Every time you hit a fork, always stay left, rated S to stars. Activating the swamp authority triggers a massive surge of magical energy. Until you fully control this power, do not set foot outside the swamp. Rated 3 stars. After making it to the swamp's center, head 10 kilometers southeast to find Starry Skyvine, which is lighter and tougher than steel cable, making it perfect for building durable swamp houses. Rated S*4. About 30 kilometers north of that area lurks a pack of decayed sentinels. They sit at an average level of 8, with the strongest hitting level 10, and there are over 500 of them. 3 stars. 5. Right under the land claimed by those decayed centaurs, a 1-star magic plant known as blue heart mud fruit grows. 3 stars. Liar instantly felt excited. This time, every piece of refreshed info is at least 2 stars, and there are even 2 pieces of 3-star intel. This is easily the most valuable update received in quite some time. He took a deep breath to steady his racing heart and began reading, starting with the very first update. The first detail reveals where to establish his territory. Within the swamp center is a wide 2-kilometer clearing, absolutely perfect for setting up base. It even points out a clear path to the center. With this map, he will avoid so much headache. Awesome! Here is the second piece, which details activating the ancient swamp authority, but its exact location remains completely hidden, and how it actually functions is completely unknown. For now, he can only write this down and act after finally securing the power. But get this, the third detail is incredibly interesting. The starry sky vine. He has honestly never heard of this plant before. Because swamp terrain is tricky, constructing stable buildings on regular ground is quite a huge risk. The thick, damp moisture, combined with the sinking mud, make building an absolute nightmare. But now he has the perfect construction material. Absolutely perfect. He must get it. Next is the fourth update, rated at 3 stars. It is about the decayed centaurs, dwelling 30 kilometers north of the central zone. There are over 500 of them, averaging level 8 across the board, with the strongest reaching level 10. They are all mid-level knights. Liar instantly felt the massive pressure. Right now, the strongest fighter at his disposal, the Haggis, is only at level 7, even though it is a hero unit. One fighter simply cannot take on 500 decayed monsters. Soloing those half-humans is unrealistic, unless we have a top-tier powerhouse like Felina at level 17. The sheer value of a 3-star reward. It shows some major details, but check this out, that final detail is insane. Right beneath those rotting half-humans, there grows a legendary, hidden magic plant. The blue heart mud fruit actually has its own memory. It is a rare magical food you can eat directly. As a main staple compared to Noi rice, it might not taste better, but just half a kilogram can fully satisfy a strong an orc warrior for an entire day. Plus, it yields a ton, maturing in just 2 months, but it only grows in wet, damp areas, making cultivation on a large scale quite hard. Wealthy nobles have always monopolized it. If I can get my hands on it, our food crisis is solved. This is a crucial strategic treasure, essential for our very survival and the future growth of our territory. The growing conditions for this rare blue heart fruit aren't very difficult in these wetlands. A chosen plant. Its 3-star rating is definitely well deserved. But to secure this incredibly high potential magic plant, I first must eliminate the threat of those decayed, vicious half-humans. Lost in deep thought, Lear slowly drifts off to sleep. Early morning, August 5th. Lear gets up early, checking his supply of dragon droppings, then looks toward the swamp ahead. Thick mud, murky water, rotting corpses, and weeds, mossy grounds and lone trees. It matches exactly the gloomy swamp described by bards. Low bushes sprout from the muddy water, where you can almost see bubbles rising from murky ponds. Bones of unknown creatures are partly visible, floating on the surface. The air is filled with a rotten smell, with moss covering dried, decayed wood with a thick green coat. A faint mist drifts slowly around, making it pretty hard to see clearly through the fog. You can spot a few massive trees looming ahead, but this is no forest. This muddy swamp stretches out for hundreds of kilometers. It is packed with swamp beasts, a highly dangerous and unforgiving place. But the real horror here is the swallowing mud, a total trap where one wrong step. Honestly, you get pulled straight under that filthy water. Plus, this humid environment breeds countless dangerous, deadly, venomous bugs and snakes. Normal folks would not survive a stroll through here. Right on the slimy mud, a narrow, winding trail disappears into the fog. Liar takes a deep breath, ordering Haggis to take 5 squads of marsh lizard men and scout ahead for any potential threats. He wants to crush any threats. Then he signals the entire convoy to move out. Since the path is narrow, the carriage line stretches out pretty thin. Both swamp dwellers and the lizard men are built for this terrain. Once inside, their overall energy levels completely skyrocket. This damp air, the thick grass, and the dirty, dark water pools, along with wild vines, actually make them feel incredibly safe in this wild place. Liar feels the exact same way too. And get this, the entire swamp is cheering for him. He gazes deep into the dark, wet wilderness. His eyes shine like a brilliant galaxy. Their god has finally returned. They march deeper along the winding mud trail. Soon, the heavy mist slowly begins to clear up, but as they venture deeper into the wild, giant, ancient trees start popping up, stretching out endlessly. High weeds and branches completely block their view, limiting their sight to maybe 100 or 200 meters. A faint, foul smell rises from the stagnant water pools. Strange fish splash and break the slimy surface, sending ripples outward. This place is packed with hidden dangers, far worse than regular swamp monsters. Nasty poisonous pests and snakes are everywhere. They are all highly toxic thanks to the dragon droppings, but they have already fled in sheer panic, meaning they barely even slow our team down. After 20 minutes of trekking, suddenly, a loud howl rings out. Haggis is desperately warning them that enemies are near. Liar instantly freezes, quickly ordering his entire team to halt, leaving 5 squads of marsh lizardmen to guard the rear, while the rest push around to bends. But wait until you see what lies ahead. Murky water slowly flows across a wide, grassy marshland. A few trees standing completely alone in the wetlands, shrouded in a hazy green mist. The level 7 hero leads 5 squads of lizardmen, screaming fiercely as they clash with monsters, spilling out from a nearby hill, which stands about 10 meters tall and covered in weeds. Each beast is around 1 meter 20 tall, like a child. They have pointed mouths showing to very sharp fangs, with 4 long whiskers that almost curl all the way to their backs. Their ears are huge with wild eyes. Their bodies look like giant, bloated mice, but they walk upright, with claws sharp as daggers that gleam with a cold light under the morning sun. They are level 3 mouse men, with a 1-star potential rating. Their plague talent carries deadly germs to infect targets, with a biting skill. A 1-star attack using sharp teeth to bite enemies, inflicting heavy piercing damage. Underground pests, beware of those razor-sharp teeth. Liar warily narrows his eyes at these level 3 beasts. Their levels are pretty low, but there are just way too many behind that hill. Honestly, this looks like a massive monster nest. The swarm outside already exceeds 4 squads, and more keep pouring out of the dark. A dense mass. Sure, the wetland lizard men are much stronger physically, but this crazy horde turns them into rocks, just getting battered by waves, about to break any second. Liar instantly orders a full charge. Go reinforce Hark and the other lizard men. Nobody hesitates. They grip their heavy steel blades and roar, slamming right into the thick crowd of Kelden mouse men. Blades swing, slicing cleanly through flesh. No armor protects these pests, so they get absolutely torn apart. Blood sprays everywhere. Yet these savage beast men show no sign of backing down. The scent of blood only fuels their brutality. They split into 2 groups, charging straight toward 2 squads. Leaping forward, they claw and bite like demons. Their razor-sharp teeth act like daggers, piercing heavy armor and ripping through scales. Their massive numbers are just too overwhelming. Even a solid wall of steel blades cannot block them. About 10 of the wetland lizard men take the hit first. Wild mouse men crawl right over their bodies. They bite right into their armor gaps. Just listen to that, you can actually hear their bones snapping. Enraged, the lizard warriors swing their steel blades, severing heads with single, brutal slashes. But the truly terrifying part happens after decapitation. Those severed rodent heads, they still cling tightly to the lizards, refusing to let go, biting down even harder. That insane jaw pressure, it literally crushed right through their tough arms. But after getting hurt, the wetland lizard men snap and go completely berserk. Their golden eyes turn blood red. Growling low, they plunge right back into the chaos. A massive pack of rats gets crushed by a vehicle. As they link up with Hark, right now, around 15 squads of wetland lizard men remain. But across the battlefield, the curd rat men are only multiplying, ballooning from 4 squads to 7. A literal sea of rats quickly filled the swamp. Worse, from the overgrown hill right behind, hordes of ratmen kept emerging nonstop. These beasts stood only 1.2 meters tall, carrying pretty average strength and almost 0 defense. But their insanely sharp gnawing teeth were absolutely terrifying. They were incredibly lethal. A single bite could easily dent 1-star armor, tearing right through the tough scales of the wetland lizardmen, though every single bite cost them a life. There were simply too many of them. They traded their lives just to leave a scratch. These rabid ratmen had absolutely no fear of death. It is terrifying. Liar, standing right in the center of his formation, finally felt the swamp's true ferocity. The rabid beasts were in a complete frenzy, and his divine residual power skill could not calm their maddened state. He took a slow breath, his eyes turning cold. If they would not submit, then he would slaughter every last one. His magic power surged. A pale blue light shot across space, sinking deep into the bodies of several heavily wounded wetland lizardmen warriors. Up front, their wounds healed right away. Insanely fast. Swamp blessing. This 1-star skill unleashes a wave of life force covering a 3 by 3 meter area, rapidly restoring up to 20% of their health, and boosting the healing effect to 30%. While he did not possess any direct offensive skills, he wielded incredibly powerful healing magic. Just think about how clutch this is. an absolute lifesaver for frontline warriors. After a few quick rounds of healing, those battered wetland lizardmen warriors grew even more savage. They charged back in, fighting with sheer, brutal rage, clashing directly against the enemy swarm, and turning this battlefield into a meat grinder. Steel blades slashed, sharp claws slaughtered, face-to-face combat, every single strike cutting deep, sending flesh, bone, and blood flying everywhere. A sight like this sends chills down your spine. In this moment, amidst the chaotic, blood-soaked fury of the battlefield, nobody felt fear anymore. Blood and violence blurred everything. Their only remaining instinct was to kill, slaughter the enemy scum across the low marshes and wet grasslands. Amongst the thick reeds, the waters stained bright red, a rotten smell of mud and swamp water, mixed with the heavy smell of blood, inducing pure nausea. Meanwhile, Hags, as a hero unit, unleashed absolutely terrifying combat power. A faint crimson energy radiated from him, burning like wild flames around his body. With over 1,000 active health points, Hag swung his sword. He almost single-handedly halted the charging swarm of Kurd Ratmen from their flank. One swing, one dead enemy. The hero's ultimate strength was fully shown. Yet, those crazed and wild Kurd Ratmen brought overwhelming numbers to slowly wear down our swamp lizard hero. Just look at this. Like ants slowly bringing down an elephant. Roughly counting the rat soldiers now facing him, there were easily several hundred, over 1,000, bodies and fallen foes piled up everywhere. Lear did not personally slay any rat soldiers, but by utilizing his powerful healing magic while directing the battle, that's when everything shifted. The enemy strategy of trading lives for injuries was instantly shut down completely. The wounds left on the lizard warriors by those vicious Kurd rats, even if there were several, quickly vanished in the blink of an eye. Their bloody sacrifices failed to yield any results. 15 squads, 150, with brutal efficiency, slaughtered over 3,000 Kurd rats. Finally, another attack shattered against their cold steel blades. A sharp, terrifying rat squeak echoed from the hill behind. 5 or 6 squads of Kelder Ratmen retreated, vanishing like a receding tide into the hills, leaving a horrific field of corpses and severed limbs. The sheer bloodiness even stained the swamp soil, erasing its original color. Lear stood on the battlefield, calmly watching this horrifying scene unfold. Slowly exhaling, the bloody remains no longer made his heart tremble. Iron, blood, and slaughter were forging a true lord, fit to survive in this brutal wilderness. Before he could even make a move, his mystical intelligence system suddenly flared to life. Your army killed 3,692 Keldriths, securing a truly glorious victory, earning an extra piece of crucial intelligence. The swamp god possesses the unique ability to refine the very essence of life energy. As long as you remain in the swamp, you can channel the divine power to extract the essence of lives you execute. Take note, this essence can trigger the evolution of swamp creatures, helping them shatter their potential limits and transform. You can now raise your subordinates' potential limits up to 2 stars, but only if you completely control the swamp's authority. Lear's breath hitched, and his eyes flared with wild excitement. And get this, another surprise lay waiting. Another highly valuable piece of intelligence. Within the swamp, you can use divine power to extract life essence, shattering their pre-existing potential limits. Although the current potential limit is only 2 stars, it still excites Lear immensely. What he needs most now is military strength, and his only controllable force right now is the wetland lizardmen. But these 1-star potential warriors have already reached level 6, their absolute maximum level. He turns to look at the warrior standing nearby, drenched in blood and wearing black armor. A savage, brutal aura leaks from his skin. His eyes gleam as he orders them to collect the dead rats. With the order issued, the wetland lizardman gets ready. His fight ends. He immediately leaps straight into action. Right at that moment, Harjas emerges from a faraway bush, dragging a nearly dead Kelder rat master along. He announces that they just found this strange hybrid. His amber eyes flare with a cold, relentless light. Pure bloodlust. Let's be real. You don't play nice with enemies. Leo stares coldly at the panting beast. He sees Kel, the bloody rat. Face cold, he demands where the rat is from. The rat sneers. Blood slowly drips from the corner of his mouth. His voice rasps like a rusty, creaking windmill. He wheezes that his queen will feed them to her pups, claiming this entire area belongs to the Kaka clan. Surface weaklings are begging for death. The Kaka clan, their territory, Harja snaps instantly. He squeezes his powerful grip tighter around the rat's throat, demanding how these lowly pests dare spy on his master. His dangerous eyes grow even darker. He tightens his iron grip around the rat's neck. Surface dwellers. These fools really have no clue who they're provoking. Kurd the rat creature squeaks out sharply. He boldly mentions the dark mountain range. Those surface dwellers. Hearing those words makes Lear's eyes narrow instantly. The dark mountain range is a legendary underground place. Deep within the underground world, there is actually a secret path from this swamp, leading directly to the underground world. Lear's mind races as he speaks very softly. Screaming threats is just how weak rat creatures cry out. Do you truly believe you can threaten our surface? We are merely the scouts sent ahead. Just wait and see. Once our great queen slays that ancient red dragon, this place will become the Kakalo clan's paradise. You can't escape. Those were his final words. His breathing turns shallow, and his body suddenly stiffens. Those eyes go completely blank. Just like that, his life fades. Dead. Hags looks grim, suddenly twisting his entire body. He rips off the head and hurls it violently into the muddy water, splashing filthy water far away. To think he was threatened by this sour rat. Meanwhile, Lear remains completely calm. Unbothered, he quietly scans their surroundings, finds some survivors and make them talk. Hags acts, locating for more badly injured Kurd rat creatures. After some quick interrogation, their stories match. It is true, these vile Kurd rat creatures. They really came from the underground world. But wait, that first rat actually lied. The powerful Kakalo clan. It hasn't actually reached the surface just yet. These guys are only scouts, simply stumbling upon the hidden surface passage. They have not sent word back home yet. And it took them an entire 7 days to reach this route, meaning sending a message back will take some time. Back underground, the Kakalo clan is incredibly powerful. They are currently preparing to hunt an ancient red dragon, but that massive hunt requires their entire clan's effort. Even if they successfully slay the dragon, recovering from the battle will take time, so they won't focus on the surface anytime soon. Talk about a massive relief. Lear just arrived at this mud swamp, after all. He really does not want to face fierce enemies yet. No matter how great his potential is, it takes time to fully realize. And time is his absolute biggest luxury. While he interrogates them, the wetland lizardmen gather all the corpses, pulling them from the bloody water into a massive pile. Over 3,000 enemy bodies piled high, creating an incredibly striking and bloody sight. During the past 2 weeks, Lear has already survived over 10 brutal battles, and step by step, he has grown stronger. Even though these bloody sights are chilling, they don't shake his resolve anymore. Adapting to this brutality is absolutely necessary, because in this cruel world, the weak have no right to live. Taking a long, deep breath, he focused on channeling his mental energy directly into the shattered, ghostly blue divine spark resting inside his mind. With his gaze locked onto the massive pile of corpses, he slowly extends his hand. Mana erupted from him like wild, burning flames. Watch this, his power surges outward, washing over the decaying heap of flesh before him. Right after, airy pale blue fire started consuming the dead bodies, siphoning out a crimson life essence. The glowing energy pooled into a floating river of light. Lear focused his mind, and directed the red energy to flow outward like a river, pouring directly into the waiting wetland lizardmen. Standing nearby, those very same lizardmen immediately felt their bodies begin to warp. Their muscles bulged thicker, their bones hardened, and their tendons became incredibly tough. They were evolving rapidly, their ember eyes locked onto Lear with fanatical heat, overflowing with madness for their master. Meanwhile, the dead bodies rapidly shriveled up, drying out completely like mummies, weathered by thousands of years. With a sudden, sharp snap, they crumbled down into a heap of dusty debris, sinking into crimson muddy water. Once the life force of the corpses was completely drained away, the wild, rapid growth aura of these lizardmen finally quieted down. Lear curiously examined a nearby wetland lizardman, staring directly at its detailed attribute panel. A brand new status bar had appeared, right under the potential stat. Potential 1 star, evolution progress 50%. Once that progress bar hits full, imagine that, can their potential hit to stars? Will their level cap increase too? The life essence of over 3,000 cold mice has boosted these 15 squads of lizardmen significantly. They are halfway evolved. With just over 3,000 more, they can transform incredibly well indeed. We are absolutely thrilled. Gods truly are the ultimate beings here. Even with just a little power, they are already extraordinary. If someone could fully master a divine rank, that power would be completely unimaginable. But unfortunately, their potential limit is only 2 stars. Hagrid, this 2-star hero, remains unchanged. Calming his mind, Liar had the wetland lizard search around, especially the escape route of the rat people. As the interrogation revealed, the path to the underground world is winding and too rugged for the wetland lizard to enter, so he could only mark this spot on his magic map, planning to explore those depths later. The Dark Mountains, the Keld rat people, ancient red dragon, and the Rat Queen, all of this feels so mysterious, making him incredibly eager to explore further, given time to grow. Honestly, who knows who the real prey will be? He rallied his team and set off once more. The winding trail led them through wetlands, mud, trees, and bushes. After marching for 2 or 3 kilometers, they hit a fork, paths heading in totally different directions. Liar raised his hand, pointing them toward the path on the far left. Over the last 2 weeks, he had established absolute authority over the entire group. Even if his commands seemed crazy, no one questioned him. Many swamp folk even started viewing Liar as a divine figure who could hear the direct will of the gods. Dragon droppings cleared away almost all danger, speeding them up. By noon, they had already covered 20 kilometers. Liar suddenly gestured sharply, halting everyone with a dead serious tone. Get rid of the dragon droppings immediately. Everyone get down, Bane, watch our rear. Without hesitation, he quickly poured a large amount of clean water into a clay basin. The blood-soaked dragon droppings instantly lost their energy. Dimming like a dying light bulb, the dragon's presence vanished completely. Just a moment later, amidst the confused crowd, a deep, powerful roar echoed overhead. Looking up, a terrifying creature with a wingspan over 20 meters loomed like some ancient, giant beast, soaring majestically through the sky, casting a massive shadow below. It was a massive flying dragon with sturdy legs. Its fierce, draconic head was far more terrifying than any carved dragon on the city walls or old murals. Its dusty gray scales looked like the bark of an ancient tree, rugged and tough, showing a terrifying level of resilience. But wait, its aura is even scarier. It radiates an oppressive pressure born from a high level creature's bloodline, like a massive mountain pressing down from above. A 2-legged flying dragon, level 16 with a 4-star potential. The absolute limit for 4-star potential is level 15, yet this flying dragon is already level 16. It completely shattered that limit, making Liar's eyes grow sharp. Just one look from afar makes you feel that soul-penetrating pressure. Nobody in the convoy dares to breathe. The swamp people are trembling, with some even wetting themselves. Then, in the blink of an eye, the terrifying flying dragon vanishes without a single trace. Yet, nobody has recovered from the sheer shock. They are still completely paralyzed by that oppressive pressure. Liar takes a deep, heavy breath after entering the swamp. His perception, boosted by divine essence, is now amplified tenfold. He feels deeply uneasy. Decisively, he orders the dragon droppings removed. If this flying dragon ever finds out, it will bring absolute catastrophe. Right now, his vigilance has reached its absolute peak in this deadly wilderness, and trust me, danger can strike at any second here. He must rely on his intelligence system, his divine essence, and all his power to power up as quickly as possible. That flying dragon, I will make you kneel before me, sooner or later. Surviving that absolute horror, his resolve burns hotter than ever. Dragon droppings are low. After those 2 tense encounters, everyone is on absolute, ultra-high alert right now. Lear sends more scouts ahead, sending out 5 teams of marsh lizardmen to scout. These lizardmen are born in the swamps, making scouting second nature to them. After meeting that dragon, their path forward is surprisingly smooth. They haven't faced a single obstacle along their entire journey, but this weird piece makes Lear frown. Bane senses his mood and quietly speaks up, "My lord, that 2-legged flying dragon has a very pure bloodline. Its level is easily above 15. Its overwhelming aura is just like a mature giant dragon. It spreads absolute, pure terror wherever it goes. The local swamp beasts are all hiding right now, or have fled, but within half a day, they will all start crawling back, one by one. We must move fast." Lear nods, and looks curiously at the swamp hero, with those greenish eyes. "Are you familiar with 2-legged flying dragons?" Bane's eyes fill with old memories. He nods, then slowly shakes his head. "We once captured a young 2-legged flying dragon. We wanted to raise it, but it required too many resources. So we had to give up, his eyes turning bitter. Who could possibly understand the absolute frustration of holding a treasure without the strength to actually control it? Do you think they can actually secure it? Luck was with us, but our power was lacking. Lear pats his shoulder. We will get them in the future. Without another word, he urges the team to speed up. They desperately needed to reach their destination before the flying dragon's magic completely faded. The command was given, and everyone pushed themselves to move faster, their pace suddenly quickening. They navigated through endless twists and fork roads, muddy paths and haystacks, thick forests and all sorts of complex terrain. But everyone was amazed to find that Leo always picked the correct path, never getting lost or needing to turn back. Honestly, it is like he can literally see the future. Bane watched from behind, his eyes growing more eager. Master, you must be a chosen one, blessed by the gods, marching on without stopping. The sun slowly began setting in the west, and after crossing a muddy, grassy swamp path, their view suddenly opened up, revealing a flat, low grassland ahead, incredibly vast with the horizon stretching far away. In the center, a few scattered trees grew, the grass rising a meter above the water, with thick, marshy mud flowing slowly around. This vibrant, peaceful scene meant one thing: they had arrived. Right then, everyone absolutely loses it. After more than 20 days and 1,000 kilometers of traveling day and night, they had finally reached their new territory, their future home. But while everyone celebrated, he just calmly approached Leo and stood beside him. He cautiously pointed toward that sparse group of giants, standing in the middle of the area. Over 10 massive trees, over 15 meters tall with thick, heavy canopies. Master, those are not just ordinary trees. They are actually swamp tree people. Leo's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked up. The great trunks looked rugged and highly uneven, covered in massive patches of thick moss, branches heavy with thick, green leaves, gently swaying in the wind, occasionally shedding a few yellowed leaves. At first glance, they seemed totally ordinary, but sensing them on a deeper level, you could easily tell these trees possessed a lively vitality, burning bright like a raging fire. Swamp tree people, level 9 with 3-star potential, maximum level 12, with the Earthchild racial talent. Rooted, their defense rises by 50%. They constantly absorb earth energy to recover their skills. 2-star skill, root bindings, which traps enemies with a nasty paralyzing effect. And branch whip, another 2-star skill for close combat, dealing 40% extra damage. System assessment says they are fierce fighters, but they cannot move a single inch before level 10. Look at that, level 9 with 3-star potential. Master, please give the command. He just stood ready with a firm gaze, waiting for Liar's command, so he could lead the charge, whether fighting massive tree monsters or dragons. But Liar slowly shook his head. Sure, they were only 3 levels above the wetland lizard men, but their actual combat strength was easily doubled. Taking them on in a head-to-head fight would cost us way too much. No need to rush in, just follow me, he said, stepping slowly into the marsh, stopping exactly 50 meters away from the monsters. Liar kept his eyes locked onto the towering trees standing 15 meters tall, 12 massive monsters in total. But these tree monsters have a massive flaw. Because they cannot move, their mobility is 0. Yet they gain insane close-range fighting power. Since we lack range, wiping out these 12 massive trees is going to cost us a lot. And right then, a heavy branch, thicker than a steering wheel, slammed down, nearly crushing a wetland lizard man. Instantly sensing these uninvited intruders, the giant tree in front shook its branches violently. Showering leaves revealed hideous, twisted faces on the moss-covered gray trunks. They opened their mouths, letting out deep, booming, thunderous voices. Strangers, this is not your land, leave immediately. The ancient tree spoke, using a highly advanced language, so even without understanding the words, anyone could easily grasp its meaning. Through mental communication, it directly transmitted the message into their minds. Lear stared at the treant before him. Before Lear could speak, Hag snapped in anger. Outsiders, treants, this is the domain of our overlord. You should kneel and show respect. Wait for it. This slow-tempered treant immediately got furious. The face on its trunk twisted slightly, about to curse when suddenly, an indescribable, massive pressure surged outward from the human boy standing before them. A look of absolute terror hit its face. This was the lingering might of divine power, an absolutely incredible skill that could make subordinates submit forever. and never betray, but only if the opponent was already weak, vulnerable and unable to escape, forced to endure this divine authority. If they were free and in good condition, it would likely only provoke anger. Even literal gods face plenty of rebellion. Relying purely on pressure to dominate the swamp was totally unrealistic. True, powerful strength still had to come within. But check this out, everything changes now. These swamp treants could not move. They had to endure the terrifying authority of the swamp god, even if it was just a broken divine fragment, or an authority not yet fully activated. Divine power was still divine. It was far beyond what mortals could resist. Sure, other enemies could escape this area, avoiding the crushing divine might, but these treants had to bear it all. 12 swamp treants instantly felt their souls tremble, desperate to kneel and bow before this boy. It felt as if he owned their very souls, an absolutely omnipotent and majestic being. No, you demon, don't think you can enslave our souls. The swamp tree man went completely wild. Suddenly, the ground shattered. Countless root-like tendrils erupted. They were sharp as steel whips, tearing the earth apart, wildly thrashing around like fierce dragons. Bang, bang. The massive roots slammed down, kicking up huge clouds of dirt and grass. But look at him, Liar doesn't even flinch. He stood there, calmly watching him. To dominate an enemy like this, you have to completely subdue them. Right now, he had the perfect opportunity. Within a 30-meter radius, the swamp tree's roots covered absolutely everything. But Liar stood 50 meters away, completely safe. He kept pouring mental energy into the dark, unleashing a massive wave of blue divine might. The crushing pressure. We are talking power way beyond a dragon's roar. It surged out, wild and free, slamming down directly on the tree man's soul. The monster's rage and frustration slowly began to crumble. His soul was forced to yield to the pressure. This sudden submission made the tree man panic. He started begging loudly, but Liar completely ignored him, keeping up his divine might. Submit or be destroyed. The tree man's soul felt crushed by a giant hand, creaking loudly, but he still refused to surrender. No, demon, you will never enslave us. Despite his stubborn resistance, the deadlock dragged on for half an hour. The tree man's vibrant life force finally began to fade, but Liar's face turned pale. Holding this divine power for so long was a massive drain on him. But this was a battle of pure endurance. The first to break would lose, and right now, Liar held the upper hand. Perfect timing. The terrain and the people completely favored him. Honestly, how could they even hope to fight him? The leading tree man felt his very soul cracking. As massive fissures broke open, his urge to surrender had finally reached its peak, and those last, rebellious thoughts were completely extinguished. Weak and broken, his branches slowly drooped, and the face on his trunk showed pure fear. "O great ruler, master of the swamp, I willingly surrender to you." As the first tree man surrendered, the other 11, completely unable to hold on, slowly lowered their massive heads, submitting entirely in spirit and blood. Liar sensed their souls offering respectful obedience. His mental energy instantly surged out, easily engraving his mark within their souls. Once he eased the pressure, his pale face finally regained some healthy color. A tiny smile played at the corner of his mouth. Like newly tamed eagles, these 12 tree people instantly became the first guards of his territory. Their major disadvantage completely turned into a strength. Meanwhile, Hags, who was standing nearby and witnessed everything, shivered with absolute awe at these powerful swamp giants, bowing down to the great ruler's authority. Incredibly, there was no need to fight. This was his ruler, a truly fierce leader. Fame was also incredibly excited. That majestic divine power did not just terrify the swamp tree people, but also made every single swamp dweller tremble. Liar completely ignored the crowd's thoughts and focused on the carts hauling their goods. Build the territory right around here. Bane, go scout the surroundings, check the terrain, and map out our future settlement buildings. Right now, this swamp hero proved highly useful. Bane nodded eagerly, but then paused, as if remembering something. Master, what should we call our territory? Liar says meaningfully, the city of First Dew. Hearing this name, Bane freezes in sheer shock. Then, his eyes light up with excitement. The city of First Dew, but soon, the brutal war of the gods broke out, and the ancient swamp god was slain. The grand building plans for their sacred city were stopped completely. The next deity never rebuilt that holy swamp city. Since that dark day, the city of First Dew only existed in legend, but that name means everything. Think about it, they want their old glory back. They want to reforge their long broken sword. We swear to follow you to the death. Liar nods quietly but does not say more. He sends them off to get working. Then, he heads straight back to the massive swamp trees. The deep roots of these giants were already buried safely back in the dirt, leaving a torn-up mess on the grass. It will take time to heal and nurture them. Are there any nearby enemies that threaten us? The lead tree speaks in a muffled, deep voice. Ruler, to the north. There is a wandering pack of foul and stinky giants. Numbers unknown. To the east, dozens of two-headed ogres have settled. A foul, stinky giant beast. And two-headed ogres. Liar raises an eyebrow. How strong are they? The stinky giants are around level 9, and they hunt here often. Those two-headed ogres arrived 3 months ago, with an average level of 10. His eyes narrow. Surviving in this swamp means there are absolutely no weaklings. Both are serious threats that we must investigate carefully. Questioning further yielded nothing, but the swamp treants have no more info. Even though level 9 treants are strong, their lack of mobility is a fatal flaw. For now, they can only wait for enemies to approach. That horribly foul-smelling giant and the two-headed ogre. They roam huge hunting territories, so their locations are pretty well known. But for the others, he has to find them himself. Good thing a level 9 swamp treant is on guard. Plus 200 level 6 lizardmen, all wearing heavy armor. There is really no need to worrying. Strong horses hauled all the supplies to the center. They started unloading, setting up tents one by one, and packing all the gear inside. Watching the busy crowd, Liar felt strangely moved. He was literally starting from absolute scratch here, building his own empire. It felt pretty unreal, just like playing a real-life city builder game. But honestly, no video game could ever match this. Taking a deep breath, he opened up his interface to check the 3 unfinished tasks left on his list. Once in the middle of this muddy swamp, go 10 kilometers southeast to find the starry vine. These vines are actually tougher than steel cables, lightweight, and perfect for building shelters in the marsh. About 30 kilometers north of the center, a group of decayed centaurs live. Their average level is 8, the highest at level 10, numbering over 50, rated 3 stars. Deep beneath the territory of those decayed centaurs, a level 1 magic plant called blue heart mud fruit. And besides that horribly foul-smelling giant, as well as the two-headed ogre mentioned by the treant, those decayed centaurs 30 kilometers north need caution too. This is a high-level monster stronghold. Only when his lizardmen increase their potential and their levels can he even think about attacking them. As he ponders, his eyes drift to the third piece of intel. 10 kilometers southeast, the starry vine. Remember that one? Liar calls for Bane. Do you know about the starry vine? This swamp hero thinks for a moment and whispers, Sir, the legend says that the starry vine is tough as steel, and it thrives in marshes. The ultimate marsh city. Swamp City was built using starry vines. He hesitated, but after Swamp City fell completely, the vine became rare, and even its stories faded away. Liar smiles. What if we find that starry vine? Could we actually use it? Bane's eyes completely light up. If the master says so, then it must be true. He beats his chest, giving his word. Of course I can. That is the starry vine, the actual foundation of legendary Swamp City. At Swamp City, Liar nods and looks at Harges nearby. Leave 5 small squads, and have Swamp Trans guard our supplies. Everyone else, follow me now. Lord Harges immediately goes to gather their men. 15 teams assemble quickly, and Liar doesn't waste time, turning to march southeast. With Swamp Trans protecting the base, he is completely free from worrying. No heavy convoy to slow them down. Their march is fast. Liar treks through the wet marsh, feeling a deep sense of absolute comfort here. His basic senses are incredibly boosted. He can feel danger or safety, even in areas hidden from sight, reaching up to 300 meters. For beastly monsters like dragons, this detection range multiplies several times over. The swamp is truly his home. After trekking about 2 kilometers, wait, Liar suddenly signals everyone to stop. His eyes lock onto a patch of reeds, just 100 meters ahead, standing half a man tall, swaying gently in the wind. Everyone, stay completely alert. There might be enemies hiding in those reeds. Amber eyes of a wetland lizard gleam. Their men instantly show hostility. Sensing movement, they quickly gather around him. Angry curses echo from the reeds, rustling and shifting. Ugly creatures, standing about 1.5 meters tall, emerge from the reeds, glaring fiercely. Each head is just an ugly fish face, sporting dead, white eyes that look absolutely, incredibly creepy. Their bodies are completely covered in slimy, sticky mucus smelling strongly of rotting fish, making everyone feel sick. They stand onto feet, clutching crude bone spears in their hands. Half-fish beasts with level 5 potential. 1-star racial talent, slimy mucus. That slime actually gives them extra resistance to magic, cutting magical damage by 20%. Skill, slimy fish spear. The 1-star mucus coats their weapons, sticking to enemies and slowing them down during attacks. Their wetland life talent makes them move faster in swamps, gaining an extra 30% speed. Honestly, they are just common swamp monsters. Within a moment, the half-fish army grows to over 4 squads. Liar's eyes turn extremely cold. Just level 5, 1-star trash monsters. What kind of mindless pests dare to ambush them here? Snorting coldly, Hags led the charge to kill. He rushes forward with overwhelming violence, instantly tearing apart 7 or 8 half-fish beasts directly in his way. Plunging into the crowd, fresh blood dyes him red, making this swamp lizard hero look absolutely terrifying. He is brutal when taking damage, growing even more ferocious. All his attributes spike by 30%, fearlessly fighting all the way to the death. Pure bloodlust takes over. His size grows by 20% and strength by 40%. Every single skill is made for slaughter. Regular swamp lizard men are not quite this fierce in battle, but they are still tearing through the half-fish creatures. One swamp lizard swings his steel blade, fighting against a remarkably agile half-fish creature on the field that easily ducks under the strike. Another lizard spear strikes its belly hard, but with a loud crack, the spear shatters, leaving nothing but a faint white mark on its armor. This swamp lizard snarls, fiercely swinging its massive arm, blades for claws, piercing straight through the chest with a squelch. A bloody claw rips right out the fish creature's back, swinging with force, ripping the body apart and tossing it aside like garbage. Absolute killing efficiency. It is barely slower than a level 3 Kelder rat. These swamp lizard men are way stronger, one-on-one than these fish creatures, backed by armor-crushing power. Just look at their savage side now. The half-mermaids fight fiercely. Their weapons cannot even hope to pierce that thick wetland armor. Instead, they get popped one by one. The half-mermaids are slaughtered. Their squad count drops incredibly fast. Soon, less than 3 small teams remain on the field. These swamp monsters finally break. You can literally see the terror in their eyes, shaking as they drop their weapons to turn and run away. But escaping is not an option. Liar had already positioned multiple squads to block the bushes. Now, the wetland lizard men begin the final cleanup. Steel blades flash together. Splat, splat. Cold steel slicing through flesh and shattering bone. Screams of tearing flesh fill the air. Blood completely paints the grass. All 5 level 4 half-mermaids from the squads are utterly slaughtered. The cost was over 30 injured, but only lightly hurt. Around 30 total, with 0 serious wounds. Liar wanted to keep a few survivors, but in the end, not a single one survived. They simply fought way too fiercely. He did not mind, staring at the bodies piled everywhere. His face is totally calm, even showing a bit of satisfaction. Pile them up. These corpses are highly valuable war spoils. The wetland lizard men, knowing exactly how this works, get super hyped up, quickly dragging the bodies over and stacking them right up, waiting eagerly on the side. Liar just grins without speaking, channeling his deep magical energy as a soft blue glow envelops him. Crimson life force rises directly from the slain half-mermaid bodies, surging into his waiting lizard men allies. While the corpses melt into dust, his progress bar shoots from 50 to 70%. Talk about an epic power-up right around the corner, ready to reach to star potential status. This feels way better than those level 3 rapmen. These level 5 half-mermaids give far more energy, meaning tougher targets give way higher energy returns. Upcoming fights are going to be absolute blasts. Harges and his squad scout the area, but find 0 traces of any mermaid nest. With that, Liar wastes no more time and pushes ahead, leaving the thick reeds behind. They enter a swampy waterweed territory. Long green tendrils drift through the murky depths, with delicate little pure white blossoms on top, resting right on the surface, bobbing gently with the slow currents. A soft breeze brushes past, making them dance, releasing a surprisingly clean fragrance. The peaceful view actually helps Liar unwind a little. But wait for it. A scout lizard man suddenly shrieks in absolute shock.